Candace Owens sat down with Hunter Biden for a nearly 2-hour interview and provided him with yet another forum to continue his image rehabilitation tour. And Hunter's been busy on this. We've seen him in many other locations trying to reverse his reputational damage and paper over his past. He was on with Sean Ryan. He was on with Channel 3 News and others. And now he sat down with Candace Owens. All of this to essentially launder his criminality into his addiction in order to exonerate himself, in order to commingle the two so that you can't tell the difference. And of course, this is very clever because obviously good people want people to recover from their addictions, to actually make amends and to right the wrongs of their pasts. We have an empathy reflex, and Hunter's now trying to pull at it hard enough that you'll forget about everything else he's ever done. But the bigger reason is his attempt to equate addiction with innocence, to imply that he cannot and should not be responsible for his prior bad acts and that his addiction ultimately immunizes him like a shield. But that's not how it works, as you know, either in the law, in recovery, or in a sane reality. And people have a lot of questions about him and his innocence. And if he is innocent of these and other allegations, why did his father issue a blanket pardon for him after saying that he wouldn't? What was he doing? Making $83,000 a month working with a foreign energy company called Burisma while his dad was vice president? Why was he asking for $500,000 per painting while his dad was the president? And how can he be opposed to the Epstein class when there are credible allegations he was also trafficking in women across state lines for years without any consequences? Well, fortunately, here today to help us make sense of this interview and to provide a real-time fact check of Hunter's truths and lies, we have Garrett Ziegler of Marco Polo 501c3 and author of the report on the Biden laptop, baby. That's the new edition that he's got there. Garrett, welcome back to the channel, my friend. Great to see you.
Thank you for this opportunity. It is needed because the gaslighting that occurred about 48 hours ago went unrebutted. And you and I are some of the best people in the Western world to call out the lies. And I have so much to say. My mother, God love her, she said, let Rob talk. He's just as bright as you. I know this. So I'll do a better job of not speaking too much. I don't have the controls to pause the interview. We're not going to go more than 2 hours. I'd love to be able to go through the non-lie portion at 1.25x. But what we're going to be doing is being fully human, using all of our senses, using facts to basically refute what Hunter said. Usually when people lie, you do not have primary source evidence that can show that it's a lie. Sometimes people lie, and just like before Google came along and before everybody had a computer in their pocket, people could BS and you couldn't say on the spot, hey, that's hogwash. Most people, when they do these rehab tours, Rob, they don't have primary source evidence showing that everything they're talking about is completely ridiculous. So that's why we put out the physical copy. Sure, the PDF is free and everybody should go look at this PDF and look at the high resolution images. But the reason we put the physical book out there is because of exactly this, his attempt to rewrite it. And like you said, his attempt to conflate addiction, which he classifies as a disease. I don't think it's a disease. We'll get into that. I do think there's a genetic predisposition to it. There's almost no question about that. But the idea that every addict, every drunk, every person who has this predilection, those people don't sign multi-million-dollar contracts with foreign oligarchs. And that's what we're going to get to.
Amazing. Well, you're the subject matter expert, no doubt about it. And so
thank you. I was the expert witness, Rob. Out of everybody who's going to talk about this, Candace Owens, everybody who's going to talk about this, I was the only one that was an expert witness for the mother of his child. He almost cried during the deposition that I sat in on. He cannot mention me. He'll mention Bannon. He'll mention Gal. I am like Voldemort to this family. Okay, I am he who must not be named because he can't even look me in the eye. It's just I want to get going. I know that this is a long interview. I did the whole 8 hours with Sean Ryan. I don't want to do that here. About 40% of it is just their Oprah moment. It's just entertainment. But I am very interested, and your audience is very interested in the verifiable lies. Because, Rob, as I said, some lies can't be rebutted. because the evidence doesn't exist anymore. There was only 2 people who were witness to it. You know this better than me. You're a criminal defense lawyer. Just like Harvey Weinstein, an obvious predator, but he just got a mistrial because it was his word against hers, and she changed her story. So sometimes you don't have the ability to refute somebody, and here we do. So that's why I'm very much looking forward to this. I'm glad as hell that we're doing this. You and I are the same. There is no such thing as a Saturday to us. I find this work intoxicating in all the good ways. So I'm glad everybody's tuning in on a Saturday, and this is being taped. So if you're normal and want to watch this on a weekday night, you can.
Definitely. And for those who may not know your work and your background, obviously you've been on this channel a handful of times before. It's always a great time to talk to you. But can you just give them a quick rundown of what this thing is so that the foundation is established that you are the subject matter expert on this, as you mentioned?
Yes. So very quickly, I'm a private eye. I'm a licensed private investigator that is basically interested in only a couple of beats. The biggest beat that I've had for over 4 years now is going through the data from an abandoned laptop that was copied onto a hard drive. That's going to be one of the sophistry moves that Hunter tries to pull in this discussion. I'm not going to call it an interview, Robert, because it's not an interview properly understood. There was no probing. There was no difficult questions. It was just a discussion. I'm going to get into the comparison that I have between Oprah and Candace, and even the mononym similarities, Candace and Oprah. This will sting like solar cane to the right people, and that's really the audience for today. The private eye work that we do is not figuring out whether somebody cheated on their wife, although Hunter did cheat on his wife, and she knew that. That is what people typically think of as private eyes. We are a public interest nonprofit that only works on corruption in the public sectors. Some private sector stuff, but mostly public sector because it involves public violations of law. So we wrote this book. We had a $1,000 bounty for any material correction. So if there are any people watching this, and I'm sure Kevin Morris is, the offer is open since 2022. If you can find a material error, meaning it's not an apostrophe, it's a material error, we will give $1,000 to the charity of your choice. And so every idiot watching this, meaning the left, the people who follow me on Telegram that hate my guts, the offer is still open. What we're talking about today is like Isaiah 1. We're reasoning together. We can look at text messages, we can look at emails, and we can ascertain what the stated goal was. And the last thing I'll say, beyond me being a private eye and working in the first Trump White House, is that the book was written using a clear and convincing evidence standard. And as you know better than me, and you've mentioned before on the show, there's 3 basic buckets of standards of evidence, right? The lowest one I have very little respect for. It's where our civil courts mostly lie in this country, which is preponderance of the evidence. One of the reasons Kevin Morris, Hunter Biden's financier, sued me is because he thought a liberal jury could choose to say that I'm guilty because 51% of them believe so. That's preponderance of the evidence. That's weak. On the other end of the spectrum, there's beyond a reasonable doubt, which you and I both love, which is what Hunter got in 2 federal court systems. That's a high bar. And some righteous prosecutors don't bring stuff because they can only hit the clear and convincing evidence standard, not beyond a reasonable doubt. And thank God we have that standard. Where we lie, and where I lie in this book, is clear and convincing evidence. We left out numerous crimes because we couldn't say that they were with clear and convincing evidence, meaning we have a $2,000 wire transfer to a stripper domiciled in New York City, and Hunter put art therapy in the memo line, but I have no picture of her. So I can't say for sure that it was a hooker payment, although it was a hooker payment, right? So that's the evidence standard. I'm talking to the devil's advocates who are viewing this. And so that's what we are. Usually most people who lie on publications or otherwise, Robert, don't have a private eye up their colon. Well, Hunter does. And that's what I'm here for.
Amazing. All right. So let's hop into it. I think we can just start by pulling up the interview.
Yes.
And
I have the transcript right here. If you want to drop that link, there's a transcript done by a source called Happy Scribe, podcast by Happy Scribe. And so I've highlighted every single lie. And so I won't stop until I find something that I can add value to. That's my barometer of whether I'm going to jump in, Robert, whether your audience will find value in anything I say. If not, I won't butt in. And
All
we
right,
can listen to it at 1.25 because it's so miserable. Remember, Hunter's lost so many synapses through crack cocaine, Robert, that he'll use more filler words than his dad did in 7th grade when he was stuttering. I mean, this is painful stuff.
It is, but this is a duty. We have an obligation
Yes.
to make sure that the lies do not stand and that the truth and the counterfactuals are also all presented. So we're appreciative of your time.
Yes, because you and I are about truth, right? The last thing before we get started, I promise, this is entertainment to Candace. She's essentially doing Oprah moments for her guests. She's never held herself out to be a journalist. She's not an investigator. She doesn't care about the 5 W's and 1H, who, what, when, where, why, and how. That's what that's the world me and you work in. This is entertainment. Her main viewers are women who are not left-wing like Oprah, but still like that Oprah format. So we're watching an Oprah. See, this is. Remember when Michael Scott on The Office said, "Where's my Oprah moment?" That's what
Right.
Candace provides people, Robert. This is Hunter's Oprah moment. And of course, I never watched Oprah before ever. I mean, this is a joke to people like me and you, right? That's slop. But she gets millions of views. Not every interview discussion is an Oprah-like format. I'm going to be fair to her, right? But this one was Oprah-like. This was slop.
And she explains it about how this all came to be. This is the very beginning of the interview, Candace and Hunter.
Hunter Biden, welcome to the Candace Owens show.
It's wonderful to be
People
here.
are just going to be like, how on earth did this happen?
I know.
I got to give them a bit of a
Yeah.
backstory.
Sean
So
Ryan.
I went to
Sean Ryan, you said?
Yeah, she's going to mention a fellow podcaster. That's
Dinner.
Sean Ryan.
Got it.
with a fellow podcaster, and we were just talking about interviews because we don't do too many interviews on the show. And he first asked me what was the best interview I ever did, and I said, without question, the USS Liberty's survivor Phil Turney. And then he said, what would be your top interview that you'd want to do? And I said, oh gosh, we're in such a different time now. Like, I'm just not interested in politics. Like, it would have to be something so different. And then I said, actually, Hunter Biden. And I said to him, I watched your sit down with Andrew Callahan.
Yeah.
And it was kind of the most refreshing interview that I had seen in politics in a very long time, because we're so used to being gaslit about various things happening. Everyone's trying to hide stuff. And we read a lot about you. I guess we didn't really hear anything from you. So this was kind of the first time that I heard you in your own words.
So this is whatever you want me to say to get your attention, I will. So whatever's easiest for you. But remember that Candace just revealed in 90 seconds, Robert, that she wasn't prepared. Hunter wrote a semi-fictional memoir in April of 2021 called Beautiful Things. If you subscribe to my Telegram channel or any of my social media, you'll realize that I did a full debunking of the book in 2021. So it just goes to show that she didn't know who she was talking to. She said, I guess we didn't really hear anything from you. I'm reading the transcript right now. He published a book and even put some truth in there. Some, about 40%. But it just goes to show that he did talk. He has put some of this out there. So she's buttering up the crowd by saying this is the only time that you're going to come forward, right? And that it was refreshing. That Callahan interview was a joke. That pimply-faced schmuck didn't ask him any hard questions. He's a shitlib, okay? Andrew Callahan's not about the truth. He's about entertainment. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, and I generally like Sean Ryan stuff too. And when I didn't watch the full, 3.5 hours or whatever that was, some of the clips that I saw, it feels like they're just having a powwow, like it's a patty cake game, and they're not actually up to speed on the intricacies of who this guy is and how they're, in my opinion, being used as a tool in order to help him rehabilitate his image. And a part of me, and I'm not accusing them of this, but I am curious about it, is whether there's a financial exchange that was also going on about this. Like, there are podcasters that take paid interviews. It's a thing that happens. And some of them are honest and honorable about it and they disclose it. And others are not. They just take the money, they put on somebody on their channel and they're like, yeah, let's talk about all this stuff. And it's not organic, right? There's actually something else behind it.
It's completely astroturfed. I, like you, I'm not going to accuse him of that. I think that there is an exchange, Robert, but it's a different one. It's what launderers like. They're not going to get money directly from Hunter because he's pissed most of it away in drugs and women. But they are going to monetize the views, and this will get huge amounts of views. Sean Ryan got millions of eyeballs with the lob ball discussion, and I offer them no excuse because they've both been overnighted a copy of this dossier, and I made them sign for it. They have this in their possession on their property. So they have no excuse. The data is out there. Again, sometimes lies cannot be refuted because you don't have the evidence for their falsity. This is out there. Our photo and email sites, Biden Laptop Media and BidenLaptopEmails.com, which get millions of views, they're out there. They have the least excuse for this.
Yeah, and all you have to do, if you're curious about it, is go to, it's MarcoPoloUSA.org, I believe, and you can get
Yes,
a
that's
full
one of our
copy of this.
forwarding links, and this is a free PDF at BidenReport.com. MarcoPoloUSA.org goes to BidenReport.com. If you go to BidenReport.com, you can read down to the phone number. So when you and I are talking about Hunter soliciting women and moving them across state lines, most people think, I heard about that. No. We tell you the women's phone numbers. We called them up. That's what real reporting is. This is why I mention it's right-leaning Oprah moments. This is Oprah. This is not investigative work.
And they don't need to dig into it, to the depth and detail that you have, obviously, but you just flip through the book. And I've gifted this to other people as well.
Thank you.
Just for like shock value. They look at it, they go, holy crap. I've seen people open it and close it instantly. And they'll get the depth of the depravity. So then to have that, to access to that evidence, and then to turn around and act like there's nothing there, I think is problematic. But
it's so immoral because we don't just talk about the drugs and sex and women in here, Robert. We go into the business-related crimes. The business-related crimes are what separates Hunter from every other addict, which is what he wants you to forget.
All right, back to it. Just tell me, you just shout pause and I can hear you over the interview.
Just totally owning your addiction issues, also going after Jake Tapper and George Clooney. And when we were kind of expecting the typical Democrat, like, these are great guys, these guys are amazing, Jake Tapper should, win a Pulitzer, I don't know. And it wasn't what I was expecting, is what I would say. So, and then that person just sort of made this happen.
Yeah.
So I want to just sort of get into the Hunter Biden story. I will say to the audience right now, I have already made the pledge right when I got on the phone with you that, like, obviously I'm not going to make you say anything bad about your father, because that would just be completely demonic.
Look at the straw man she just said.
Yeah.
She said on the phone, nobody is ever asking Candace to make him say anything bad about his father. And by the way, nobody has. You can't make a guest do something like that. So she's already setting it up. She's already taking away her key job, which is to pursue and find the truth. Meaning, if the truth leads you to a bad decision that his father, as president of the United States, who had power over me and you and 350 million other human beings, at least, not counting all the illegals, then you owe it to your audience to pursue that. But she's putting up a straw man and saying, I'm not going to make you do this. So it is sophistry that is talented. Hunter's going to butter her up right here in about 20 seconds. He's going to say, you're the most effective communicator I've ever seen, right? So her sophistry is good in this. I'm not saying it's not talented, but it's immoral.
She's setting it so that she doesn't actually have to ask him the hard questions. And to your point before, there's some indication or some rumor or innuendo that Hunter may have been responsible for some of the decisions coming out of the White House because of Joe's incapacity. And what we heard in the Her tapes, what apparently exists in the Zwanitzer tapes, which are still being covered up by the government until the DOJ releases them in July, that Joe Biden just didn't have the capacity, and Hunter was there in and out of the Oval Office, living there, right, all the time. So it's
he lied about how much he was there.
Son.
He said in his laptop audio with Philippa Horan, a British artist, that his father thinks of him as a god, and that anything he thinks that's important to him, his father will do. His words, not mine. That's in our dossier.
Back to it.
To be like, say something terrible about your father. Everyone knows my opinions, my political perspectives. They're already out there. He's your dad. So that is separate from my viewpoints.
Because there's no way I possibly could.
Yeah, of course. I totally get that. But there's a lot to be said about you and a lot that I guess hasn't been said about your journey. And
said a lot
I guess I
about
want to
it,
start
Robert.
with just one question for the culture. The cocaine that was found at the White House, was it yours?
No, not only was it not mine. No, number one is thank you for having me here. And one of the reasons is to be able to answer these questions. You know, the one thing I am, after 6 years of this, I've been sober since June 1st of 2019, clean and sober. Verifiably so, by the way, and verifiably so by the Bureau of Probation, in which I was drug tested randomly for over the course of 2 years while I went through my trials.
They're blocking the release of his mugshot. Both the Central District of California and the District of Delaware have never released his mugshot to us. It's an absolute joke. So the Bureau of Prisons or the Bureau of Probations, yes, they might have taken his urine in a cup, Robert, but they won't give us his mugshot under no authority. Under no authority. And by the way, for your audience, we have never said the cocaine was his. We have a hunch that it was his sister's, but there's no evidence for that, right? But we've never said that it's his. So go ahead. He's creating another straw man.
And for those listening, we're playing this at 1.25 speed, I believe, just to kind of get through it a little bit more quickly.
You can go even faster because I have studied this for 4 hours today. I went through it all. So we can go through it even faster if you want.
We'll keep it here and then maybe pick it up if the audience is okay with it. Sometimes it sounds like a squirrel, you know, and people don't like how it sounds. But here's more.
Things like that. But beyond that is that, directly to your question, I wasn't even there. Not only there, but people have to understand is where that cocaine was found.
That's a lie, by the way.
You know, the visitors entrance underneath that is where visitors come in and they come over from the old executive office building staff to go to the Oval or go to the chief of staff's office or to the offices in the West Wing. And it was found in a cubby in right outside of the Situation Room. And it's like no possibility, not even remotely, beyond the fact that I wasn't even there. I mean, I spent probably, over the course of 4 years, maybe 25 days at the White House, like 25 nights, 30, if I'm being fair. And so it's just, it was an easy, I'm an easy target, and understandably so.
Right.
I mean, I've been, I think, probably the most famous addict and famous person, through the grace of God, in recovery for 7 years, or close to 7 years, June 1st. So.
Yeah, I definitely thought you were on drugs while your father was in the White House. I don't know. But I think it might have just also been the timing of the laptop coming out and then people just assuming that you were still on drugs. I don't know. That might have been why in our heads we thought that.
I think that it was that they purposely conflated, I wrote a book which came out in April of 2021, in which I did something that very few people, I think, ever in that are kind of like similarly situated to me do, in which I was 100% frank about the fact that not only was I an addict,
he was, of course, not 100% frank. He was about 40% frank, and even Hunter had to correct Candace because she said at the beginning of the interview, remember, she said, "We've never heard you speak before." So Hunter's got to do a plug for his half-fictional memoir called Beautiful Things. And so she was really corrected there. And remember, she just blew past it about the laptop. You could see Hunter fidget in his mind. She said around the time the laptop came out, he probably did a swallow right there. He was just stopping himself from going forward because he hates that. He cannot stand when somebody just presents it as a fact because it is. But you'll see him circle back to that this was conflation.
Not only was I alcoholic, I don't really see the distinction between the two when they're both drugs, but I was a crack addict. Like, I was a degenerate crack addict. I mean, I've heard you call me a crackhead many times, and the truth of the matter is I was a crackhead. And I say that not to shock people because it's really shocking. Crack cocaine carries such a stigma to it to begin with. But I say it because I think that there are so many people. I know. There are so many people. I think that there's, at any given time, 30 million Americans that are either in active addiction or in recovery. There's not a single person that I know that hasn't been impacted by addiction at some level, in some form, personally, or with someone that is 1 degree of separation from them.
Least of all me.
Yeah, and part of that, one of the reasons I'm here, the stories that you tell about that in terms of
my family,
your family, and
pause real quick.
And there is where the common ground.
20 seconds. The conflation here is that Hunter's just like your brother-in-law or your uncle who's drunk. Your brother-in-law and uncle who get drunk do not go to Romania and get paid $1 million by a real estate tycoon from Romania. That's not what they do. So again, this is sophistry. This is saying, I'm just like you. I'm just one of 30 million people, Robert. This is an Oprah moment. And he's going to get into a Mother Teresa quote. And remember, this is the smartest man Joe knows. I'll repeat that throughout the time. Because it's not just Hunter being an addict. It's that Hunter's an addict plus he's the smartest person Joe knows. If they would just cut that shtick, I would maybe pull off, Robert. But because Joe keeps talking like that, I have to keep going.
Right. And he's the everyday man. And he, as far as we recall, had Secret Service come in, right, to check on him multiple times when he was unresponsive. I think that has come out before in hotel rooms and things like that. There was also, I think, the photograph. And I think the last time we spoke to you, you were saying you didn't even know how many times he had been into rehab or to treatment because it was really too many to count. And,
dozens.
Yeah, dozens. And then there was the one photograph of him, I think, maybe a video of him drinking a White Claw or something like that in a treatment facility. And you're going...
Well, that was in a float tank at a spa. He was in treatment there with Keith Abloh in Newburyport, Massachusetts, but he was in a float tank in a spa drinking White Claw and smoking crack and then videotaping himself. But before we go on, I just want everybody to remember he's going to quote Mother Teresa here, and it's going to say, the best way to change the world is go home and love your family. Remember, Robert, he's never seen his daughter. So before Hunter can tell us anything about Mother Teresa and loving your family, how about flying into Little Rock and taking your 7-year-old daughter out to lunch?
Ground is for me. I can 100% say this is that a friend of mine gave me this quote about 2 years ago. And it's become my mantra. It's Mother Teresa. It was attributed to Mother Teresa. Is if you want to change the world, go home and love your family. That's my
never seen his daughter
now, and part of that is not just the family that you have by blood and birth, but also the community.
Somebody commented he did love his sister-in-law.
That you're inextricably tied to,
true.
and that community.
Didn't the Bidens not even acknowledge her at the White House for a while?
Joe has never met his granddaughter. This is the guy who is Mr. Decency. He's going to talk about his father's empathy and how empathetic they are. There's another unacknowledged daughter. It's not just from Navy. Frankie Biden knocked up a woman named Judy Rogers, and there's another first cousin named Megan Biden, and she too is not in obituaries. So before you say Garrett Ziegler or other right-wing people don't care about women and their promise, these people keep 2 women off of obituaries. It's nuts.
And then to use a quote like that as though that's your new mantra while you're not even seeing your own daughter, your own blood, is wild.
Community for me is the recovery community. And it's people that are still sick and suffering from addiction. And so the biggest reason that I wanted to come talk to you, beyond the fact, and this is not me blowing smoke, I think that regardless of whether I agree with you, you're probably the most effective communicator I've ever heard behind a microphone. And it's really driven me crazy at times. It's really making me mad. Yeah. But is it, I wanted to talk to you about those things and anything else you want to talk about.
Yeah. I'm most interested in the addiction story. And I was saying to you before we started rolling that this was sort of something that I noticed when I would cover various topics, whether it was pornography, drugs on my show, drinking, how many men would write and say they were suffering with various things, and yet they don't often speak about like how they're quietly suffering, whether it's with addiction to pornography, addiction to drugs, and I don't think there are enough conversations about it. And so when I watched that interview of you just laying it out there, something that most people try to hide or they're shameful of, I was like, there actually just needs to be more dialogue about it. I grew up with tons of addicts in my family. I have people in my family who are still addicted, and there is, I think, there is a natural...
He said there was a stigma around crack cocaine. That was partly attributed to his own father, Robert. His father was the key guy in the Senate creating a distinction in penalties between crack and powder cocaine. I guarantee you that because Candace is black, some of her family members that she's talking about are literally addicts in part because of the laws, or basically locked up because of what her own discussion guest, his father, did.
Right. Yeah. The crime bills, right? The 1980 and 90 crime bills. I think Joe Biden was still a senator at the time, and he was one of the main, if not the main sponsors of those bills. And we called out that sort of a contradiction back during the George Floyd protest and those George Floyd riots, when they were all saying that they were, on behalf of basically eliminating the police. The whole Democratic Party was kind of coming out in social justice and saying that the cops were bad and, defund the cops. And we were all sitting here saying, how can Joe Biden inherit that mantle when he was basically the father of like the 3 strikes law that resulted in adverse penalties for certain populations, largely targeting crack cocaine?
It's perfectly said.
Is a crack addict who
he
never
would have
had
served
those consequences.
How many mandatory minimums would Hunter? Hunter would have served 100 years in the clink if the laws applied that his father enacted to him.
But he's above the law.
Anger that people have when they, for some reason, believe, and I think this was part of the anger that even that I had it toward you before I heard you speak about your addiction, is that you sort of think when somebody has money and political connections that somehow removes them from going through these sorts of barriers in life. So when I grew up, it's like, okay, like you have uncles, whatever, that are addicted to crack. You have cousins that are doing crack, whatever it is, or experimenting with meth and drugs and those things. And then you see someone that has a life of privilege, and for some reason in your mind, you wrongly go, okay, that can't happen. And it did happen. And I actually,
so naive,
I'd like to hear
Robert,
like how you got addicted.
Water in Nantucket has higher levels of cocaine than normal Massachusetts. How can you possibly think that rich people don't have access to drugs? That's a stupid statement. Of course they have access to drugs and other things. Sorry, go ahead.
Like, what was actually the story, your path toward addiction?
Yeah. So thank you for letting me talk about that, or asking me about it. And I really mean it. It's one of the things that traps people. I can only speak about myself, but I think that people that are in that are addicts or that are in recovery, also you find out really fast is that you're not as terminally unique as you think you are. Is that and one of the things that that is really important about addicts talking to each other and talking about it is that realization. Because one of the things that traps you in your addiction is shame. And you like me are Catholic, and we have learned that guilt is an appropriate emotion. Guilt is an appropriate response to something when you've done something wrong, and you're supposed to atone for it, and you're supposed to seek forgiveness, whether the forgiveness comes from an individual or not. That's the lesson, is that it is in only through seeking that forgiveness can you release yourself from that guilt. That's appropriate. Shame is not. Shame is just absolutely corrosive. Shame is you telling yourself that you're not worthy, that you're never going to be worthy, that the things that you've done you can never be redeemed from. And I've done horrible things in my addiction in terms of what I did in terms of my relationships and
good
decisions that I made.
That's the second truth that he said.
Removing myself from being present for the people that love me.
That wasn't the worst thing.
And what happened to me, and I really mean this, is that the exposure, not piecemeal, but the total exposure, my entire digital footprint stolen from me, a 20-year digital footprint.
There.
Every tech.
We're gonna count it real quick every time he lies about it's being stolen. So this was in minute. Where's the minute that we're on? Minute 9, minute 10. He says stolen from me. First lie. No evidence that anything in our book was stolen from him. All the evidence in the world, including his own signature, that he dropped off the laptop at a repair shop. But look at that crutch, Robert. He's going to use that every time. He's going to dig his elbow into that. He's going to say it a half a dozen times that stuff was stolen from him. None of it's true. No court, nothing has adjudicated that statement.
Right. He left the laptop at Isaac Mack, right, the repair shop owners. He went in there high or drunk or something, left it, signed an abandonment of property kind of waiver. I think that meant that after a certain period of time, it becomes the store property, and it from there was investigated and then turned over.
Yes, and the sophistry that Abby Lowell and all of his other demonic attorneys employed was that Hunter signed the laptop thing, the laptop waiver, but not the data. They were trying to create this hocus pocus that there's a distinction between the physical device, which is still in the hands of the FBI, stupidly. Mac Isaac should get it back. It's his property. And then the data on the device. But guess what? That contract, if you read it, it gives Mac Isaac the authority to copy the data. So even their first line of defense sophistry, Robert, doesn't hold up because
Text message,
it
every
gave them authority.
picture, all of the things that that you would be ashamed of became front page news for 4 years, 5 years, beginning in 2019, and it forced me into a choice, and the choice was, do I get out of bed and live, or do I die?
Wow.
And it became that much of a dichotomy. And
so people who were investigating him were going to cause him to kill himself, I think is the implication. So therefore, you're almost a murderer if you were causing him this type of pain.
That is the twisted logic of a Biden. You cannot be sober and think like that. Again, spreading lies is a sin. You and I operate on the same moral code, correct? We don't bear false testimony. So the reason why Hunter hasn't sued me for defamation is because if anything we say is false, he can do so. The fact of the matter is that we stay true to the evidence, and he hates us for it. And we don't have to create any BS because this stuff is already bad enough in the device. And so I want all the audience to, I saw somebody said, why go over it? Because these lies have to be rebutted, if only for posterity. I don't want my grandkids to think that this is out there unrebutted. We've got to do it now because he's going to go on this tour, and any more useful idiots that have Oprah moments and Oprah shows like Candace that do this, you have to refute it in the moment. And that's why we're doing this. And I just want everybody to think that every time he talks about the laptop, he's going to say, it was stolen. It was stolen. There's no evidence for that.
I chose to live. It wasn't easy. And maintaining sobriety in that kind of like a pressure cooker is often the thing that triggers you. But something broke in me in a good way, which was that I no longer have any fear. I like, sitting down with you.
That's not true.
To me, all an opportunity
Still
for
afraid
you
of
to
the
see
daughter.
me as a human being and not, Hunter Biden laptop.
Yeah.
And the pictures that, Congressman Green, put up in Congress, or the New York Post. I think I was on the cover of the New York Post in 1 year more than anybody in the history of the paper, and none of it was good. None of it was good. And but what it's given me is the opportunity to own it all. Is to own all of my story without shame or fear. Realizing that
He didn't own all of it.
I have a community of people out there that I want to be of service to. I really mean that. And so part of it is by me being able to be honest about it. We were just talking before we started this, is the hardest thing for any addict to do is not only get honest with the people that they love, but to get honest with themselves. And until they can really see themselves for who they are, all of it, and decide to love themselves, then, the cycle is
Pause
just going to
real quick.
continue. It's just,
You're a Christian, I'm a Christian. God doesn't talk like that. God doesn't say to love and serve your neighbor, but only after you start loving yourself. This is modern gobbledygook. This is BS self-care stuff that Melissa's got him on, following Instagram accounts about self-care and exfoliation and all this crap. I do believe that you have to have confidence to do great things, but if you look at the dialogues of Christ and all his disciples, and anybody that he interacted with, he didn't say, go love yourself and then find within yourself loving your, how to love yourself and then go serve other people. So so what I'm trying to get at here is, even under Candace's own brand, this is slop. Candace brands herself as a Christian, and I have nothing to doubt that she is a Christian. But I'm saying, even according to the Christian ethic, this is BS.
Yeah, it's platitudes. And I think in many ways is an archetype of the same people that Candace does criticize a lot, the Epstein class, and the people who are abusing and trafficking women and all the things. But as long as you can just, put some nice paper over it and kind of wrap it up like a present, then she'll entertain it. And I'm a alcoholic. I no longer drink anymore. I had a very similar story. Lost my brother and stopped, had a problem with alcohol, stopped drinking. And I am a big proponent of the 12 steps and have men's groups and all the things.
Yes.
So I know the language, right? I know the difference between guilt and shame. And I know, amends and all of these things. And he's, repackaging a lot of that language. Like, he's been around it a lot, no doubt. And he's kind of talking in this. And we often call it recovery speak. When people just kind of talk recovery all the time, it's like a second language. They walk in and they just kind of throw this crap around. But ultimately, it's just surface level. It's nothing that's actually been ingrained. And they're using it as a cover to, escape actual self-reflection and actually, being a good person deep down and actually making amends, which is the 9th step, for the wreckage of your past, for the wrongs that you had engaged in, which of course he's not doing. As you mentioned, it won't even go see his daughter.
Perfectly said. I can't add anything to it other than I'm so glad that I'm now with you in this discussion, because we have to draw a contrast between, we're not making fun of people because they're drunks. We're saying that he is literally lying, and that people who are drunks also don't get multi-million-dollar foreign FAR violating and money laundering enabling contracts.
At least in my experience, that's the truth.
I think one of the things...
Did I even answer your question?
Yeah, well, I want to talk about the
No,
first
you
time that you
didn't,
got introduced to it, because
Hunter,
that's interesting.
Oh, I know. I went into all the good stuff.
Actually, start with that. Like, how did you actually get introduced?
Okay.
First off, describe for people who don't know the difference between cocaine and crack, because crack is a lot more addictive.
Yeah.
And so just what is the difference?
I know I got a lot of heat for...
No, it was fantastic. It was fantastic. I was like, well, he's actually very educated on this. And
well, it's important to me to make the distinction that there's this idea that there's this kind of a secret kind of special enhancement to powder cocaine that makes it into crack, and you have to have some technical degree in order to be able to do that. And let's start all the way at the beginning. I think that I'm genetically predisposed to be an alcoholic. I do believe that there is a genetic piece of it. I do believe that my brain works differently as an addict in terms of the way in which my synapses fire once they're introduced to the dopamine hit and serotonin increase that occurs because of an introduction of a substance. I believe that I became acclimated and physiologically dependent upon that when I started to drink in earnest when I was in college, in which you can control. And I made it through Georgetown, and I went to Jesuit Volunteer Corps for a year, and it was kind of like domestic peace. Well, the JBC. Yeah. I was JBC for a year after college, and then I went to Yale Law School. Was married, had my oldest daughter when I was a first year law student. And made it through all of that, and made it through my first years of employment, drinking probably more than everybody than most people do.
Said.
But
4 true things in 14 minutes, Rob.
And one day I woke up when I was 33 years old to my brother calling me and saying, "This has got to stop. Like, you got to stop." And what he meant is that like a whole weekend was missing, kind of. And I said, "Okay." And he drove me to the airport, and he put me on a plane in New York, and I flew to a place that was started by Eric Clapton called
could be true. Fifth true thing.
Crossroads in Antigua. And I went to rehab, and I came out, and I went directly when I came out, my brother picked me up from the airport, drove me to an AA meeting, walked in with me, DuPont Circle in DC. I met my sponsor at that first meeting that I ever went to, and I stayed clean and sober for about 7 years, and then I relapsed, and it was just such a mundane, stupid story. I was on a plane by myself. Everything was okay. Things were looking up. It was normal life pressures, but it was all good. And that's the real insidious thing about addiction and alcoholism. It never goes away necessarily. There's always the answer that is being presented to you by the thing that you trust the most, which is your brain. And what it says is, if you don't want to feel this way, whatever the way is, or if you want to feel this way even more, I have the answer for you. And I was on a plane by myself, and I had a drink. And that drink in 2010, 7 years almost of sobriety, started a cycle of relapse and recovery, and relapse and recovery, in which it was really hard for me to be honest with the people that love me, because I just wanted to hide it. I just wanted it to go away. And I thought, okay, I'll get through this cycle, and I'll sleep it off this weekend, and that's it. I'm done. and that would last a week, and then it would last 3 months, and then I went back to rehab, and then it became then I came back and I started, I mean, you talk about this all the time, which I love that you do. It was big pharma, you know what I mean? I had shingles, and so somebody prescribed me like 52 oxycodone, like, I mean, ridiculous, and I started that, and then I started drinking again, and the prescription ran out, and then this cycle just started to happen. And, but when my brother died, it all fell apart. Bo and I were, and like, I don't purport that our relationship was unique, or that his loss was greater than my loss of him was greater than anybody else's loss of their brother or someone that they deeply loved. But when my mom and sister and my Bo and I were in that car accident in 1972, and we survived, it was the two of us every day. We're a year and a day apart. We talked every day. I mean, except when he was in Iraq, I literally probably talked to my brother every day. And when Bo died, my marriage fell apart after 22 years.
He's going to say, for the reasons that marriages fall apart, Rob. Yeah, who among us hasn't visited hookers and strip clubs and blown tens of thousands of dollars on crack cocaine? Just reasons marriages fall apart. You'll see it in divorce courts every day in this country, right? I'm being facetious. This is a joke. He's just going to glaze over all of this. Never bring it up with Candace. Candace is not going to ask again. This is not an interview. This is Hunter's Oprah moment.
Yeah.
Oprah's guests have the floor to spew BS, and that's what they're lapping up right now. Go ask Kathleen. Why would Candace believe what Hunter says when he owes his ex-wife $3 million? He spent more time, and I want this clipped. I'm going to have my buddy clip this. I want every Candace viewer of this discussion, not an interview, to know that Hunter Biden has now spent more time with Candace than he has his own daughter.
And when he's talking about this, what time frame is this? Is this VP Joe Biden? Is this while Joe's still senator?
Yeah, according to his own story here, it's 2010. And look at that sleight of hand. He thinks that everything in the laptop, all the poor decisions, was because of his addiction. The laptop goes back to 2008. So according to his own story, there's years of correspondence that he's apparently sober, or at least functioning, that he can't explain away his corruption vis-a-vis the addiction. And again, addicts have agency. Yes, I agree with Hunter in one small thing, that there are people with genetic predispositions, but you will agree with me, Robert, that people have willpower, and that some of the best decisions are that people recognize that they have weak willpower, ergo, and they don't put themselves in those positions. But what did Joe do? Joe let his adult son become a unregistered consultant and get funny money cash from all these foreign oligarchs, and they didn't put up guardrails for him. Joe's a terrible father. That's one of the worst. That's one of the lies we've totally obliterated, that if Hunter worships Joe in a way. He also resents Joe for many reasons, which we lay out in our book. But Joe could have turned the spigot on this in 2009 and said, go be an insurance salesman. Do something that doesn't put you in all these positions. Joe let his son go across the globe and put himself in positions that he knows addicts have a predisposition to falling off the wagon for.
Well, and they also kept him funded in flush. I mean, we've covered how many text messages here and, portions of your report where Hunter's paying, $5,000, $3,000 for like 8 hours with a, probably a traffic, it's like hooker, but probably a trafficked Russian person or whomever, is being transported across state lines. And
Yes.
it's a separate addiction is what it seems like. It's, it's maybe a sex addiction, or he's really enjoying himself. And he has this money constantly, just kind of keeps getting backfilled. And then Joe puts him on Burisma. He's now making $83,000 a month. And he is enabled to the point where they're almost perpetuating all of these misdeeds.
Precisely. And it's what Diddy's in the clink for. You and I discussed Diddy on your show a long time. Diddy is in the federal penitentiary because of the Mann Act. Hunter violated the Mann Act multiple times. So we didn't even have to broach the issue of trafficking. Yes, in an absolute sense, he did traffic women across state lines. But federal trafficking, as you know, is a different statute. But we know for sure that he moved women across state lines. And he'll never sue me for that because there's videos of it. There's airplane tickets. We put the airline tickets in the dossier. What they don't want, what Hunter does not want you to do, and all of your viewers and all of Candace viewers to do, is to actually go through the dossier. That's what he will not mention it. I promise you. I've been in battle with this guy for multiple years. When you go through the emails and photos, you get the picture of somebody who's a terrible person. Terrible.
By the way, for reasons that marriages fall apart, you know, and but I take a lot of responsibility for it. And
that's good.
And it just started a really, really dark cycle. In the past, when I would have these relapses, there was always someone in such proximity to me that they would, like, you know, I couldn't escape. In this instance, Bo was gone. I right after Bo died, I ended up separated from my wife, like, within a month. And my dad, for the first time in my life, who was my rock, was stuck in his own grief, like deep, deep grief.
Mm.
And I just went down into a hole. And I checked myself into a rehab that year and came out and stayed sober for a while, and then relapsed, and then went into an outpatient program in DC where I went, like, 4 hours every day for, from 8 to 2 or 6 hours every day, stay sober. And then I relapsed, and I came back and they said, well, you have to, I admitted to them that I relapsed, and in this instance, I also used cocaine. And they said, well, you have to take a drug test. And I said, I'm not going to take a drug test. I'm not going to put something on, it's because it's not protected by HIPAA in a rehab scenario, which is crazy, right?
Mm.
Yeah. Anyway, long story short, they said, you can't come back in unless you take the drug test. And I said, I'm not taking the drug test. I'm going through a divorce. It's not protected by HIPAA. It will become public. I don't want to do this to my family. I'm telling you, I used cocaine and I drank. Is that not good enough? Come back. And they said no, for whatever reason, and I'm not blaming them. This is not their fault. I walked out, and I knew Lincoln Park was a kind of open air drug market. I saw a woman that was kind of famous in the area since I had been in college, literally for 20 years, that I would see in the streets around, DC, in that area where I would work for a long time. And I went up to her and I said, can I get some crack?
Wow.
And I think it was basically, I said, can you help me commit suicide? I mean, I don't think, I know that now, in looking back, it was the coward's way. And
Seventh truth thing you said.
I didn't go and just do it. I said, let me do it this way, and really, really, really drag everybody down with me along the way. Let me figure out the way not only to kill myself, but to maybe kill my dad, really hurt my family.
This is the only true thing. Can we stop it here?
Particularly my 3 daughters.
I call balls and strikes. This was the only thing, and I've watched every interview Hunter's done in 5 years, Robert, that he ever is fully human in. Now he blames it in part. He didn't say I'm not blaming them, but he says that that's the reason he fell off the wagon. He won't name the woman, but it's a black woman named Robin Henry. And Josh Boswell at the Daily Mail did a great piece about how he lied about his relationship with Robin. He calls her Bicycles and Rhea in his book. Her nickname was Bicycles, and she's a crack addict. And apparently he gave her a key to her house. But Hunter, in his half fictional memoir, paints it that he cared for her and he would never return her calls. So that's another lie.
Who adore me and I adore, just the fact. And I smoke crack. And the difference between crack cocaine and powder cocaine is this. And I really truly do not want to give a roadmap for people to be able to
a couple times.
do this, because I swear to God, it'll kill you. But it's sodium bicarbonate, which is baking soda, water, heat. That's it. That's all. That is the entire difference of it, which allows it to be ingested through smoking. And the combination of those things makes it so that it affects your physiology much faster than it would be if you just use powder cocaine through your nose or in any other form other than intravenously. And it also allows you to ingest more faster than you could possibly ever ingest by sniffing cocaine up your nose. The combination of that, the combination of combustion, ritual, and the ritual meaning the way in which you have to, I can still feel my hands doing it.
Mm-hmm.
is, becomes this ritualistic thing with the combination of combustion, which is, and you learn, if you really study things about addiction, is these kind of key components of oral fixation and things like that. It just becomes the most ungodly addiction that you can possibly imagine, to the point where I was smoking crack. Literally, I was either looking for or smoking or recovering, not even recovering. You don't recover. You just go find more for close to a 2-year period of time.
Wow.
And it took me to places, I wrote all about it.
No, you didn't.
And I got made fun of about it. And, people think that, when I wrote my book, like, clawing through the carpet to find crack cocaine and, Parmesan cheese and I know it's a real laugh line, but anybody that's ever been an addict like that, they don't laugh about it. It's devastating. Think that you were that person. Mm-hmm. You can see yourself doing it. Just devastating. And so what happens in addiction so often is people not only, they can't admit that. They can't even admit it to themselves. They just block it out. They get 30 days clean. They come out. They go back into the same exact situation that they were in before. And they think, I'm just not going to do it again. I'm just going to stay, I'm going to make it. I'm going to make it. And what will come up is that they'll wake up in the morning and they'll remember that time in the motel with the person, the prostitute that brought you the drugs and that just stole your wallet and all your drugs and everything. And
there is a hilarious bit in our dossier, Robert, about a Connecticut woman named Alicia Sharametta, goes by Allie, that steals his truck for a time. It's hilarious because they're both on crack. He's like, "You effing steal my truck? Are you kidding me?" Alicia Sharametta. You should go look at our dossier because we, as PIs, we just ran all their numbers. It's hilarious some of the stuff he gets involved in.
You were clawing through carpet to see if there was anything there, and you smoke whatever white that you found on the ground. Like, it's the shame. Is thinking of yourself like that, regardless of who you are, regardless of where you came from, whether your dad's the president of the United States or it doesn't matter. And they don't admit that to themselves. They don't admit it to anyone around them. Don't ever say it. And you know what happens? They never lose it. And it sits like right here, like in the back of your head, and it pops up. And you just feel so disgusted with yourself that your brain immediately tells you, regardless of how far away you are from a drink or a drug, like, I know the way not to feel this way. I know exactly how to feel this way. You're going to die if you keep feeling this way. You need to take a drink. And that's always how it starts. I mean, alcohol is the most dangerous drug in the world.
I agree with that.
Just by virtue of the amount of destruction and devastation that comes personally into the people around people that are alcoholics. And I don't find any difference between being an addict and an alcoholic. But that's where it starts. And that's where it started for me. That's my story until I met Melissa and got clean and sober, and I've been till almost 7 years now.
All right, you guys. Some moment.
All right, so
go through the ad. Terrible. Although I agree with who sponsors her, I agree with the products. I just don't want to.
Yeah, we'll fast forward.
Yeah. And you obviously are, because I genuinely understand what those sorts of addictions do. I don't think people realize you're just not even yourself. Like, it's like a demon, as the best way to say it. And maybe I'm taking a Catholic take on this, but like, it's like a full demonic possession when you're in the throes of these drugs. And I mean, this was actually a great benefit of A&E doing intervention, because people could really see these moments where people will choose the drug over their family. They will choose the drug over their kids. They will they'll choose the drug over literally anything. And for people who, and I actually tend to agree with you that I've wondered myself if there's something genetic, because I'm not wired that way. Yeah. Or maybe I just haven't found the drug that would do that to me. But like, I would say that like, I've just never been, never had something and was like, oh, I just need to have that again or want it again. And I've seen friends that they have something once and they're like, want to do this every second. And I go, that's very interesting. Like, it's almost like you're made of something different.
I'm certain of that. And the science is certain of that. And anyways, I mean, we all can, I think that we all can associate with, understand addiction at more or less devastating levels. So, for instance, where's your phone? I mean, you basically have a packet of heroin.
Right.
We all do in our pocket. Yeah. Constantly giving us that dopamine, which, by the way, we can get to talking about that, because I think that we are not nearly as divided as people as we think that we are. I think that bag of heroin in everybody's pocket is feeding them a lot of that division. But so we can all kind of understand the compulsion to do things that aren't that clearly aren't benefiting us. Like staying up until 3 o'clock in the morning and going through your For You page on TikTok. Every mother, father can watch their teenager do
He's
that.
not doing this to
and
his
go,
daughter in
"God, this is
Arkansas.
awful," and I'm going to take his phone away. And then they turn back to their phone and they they start going through their phone. Like, I'm I am not any better. So we can kind of all understand that compulsion. It's when the compulsion becomes just so the blast radius continues to grow. So the difference between being a
as I said at the beginning, Robert, you can tell that his synapses are fried just by the amount of filler words and how often he gets caught off track. The blast radius analogy was the first truly sharp thing, because we call balls and strikes here. Truly sharp analogy he's used, and I've watched hours of this guy. Usually it's just like more platitudes, empathy, all the crap we were talking about. But the blast radius analogy, he must have got that from somebody else, because that's actually intelligent.
Addicted to your phone and being addicted to crack cocaine, I'm not saying are the same, but at least we can kind of get a little bit of an understanding of the physiology of that, of the way in which the brain actually works. But
it's like the micro versus the macro. Yeah.
Exactly.
And everybody has the micro.
But so you can see the micro impact of it. But I think that one of the reasons that why people are so like shocked by my story. And by the way, we're able to conflate. So if the New York Post every day for 6 years runs a picture on online. I mean, I think they literally at one point did like 1.5 stories of me a day for an entire 18-month period. Okay,
I don't know the math on that.
And it didn't matter what the subject was. It was a picture of me naked.
With the prostitute,
with whatever, and with
whatever.
Crack,
he can't
with a crack pipe in my
pause
lips.
it right. He can admit this guy is Wilt Chamberlain levels, Robert. We have counted over 4 dozen women. So Wilt Chamberlain, as you know, bedded at least 500 women in his life. Hunter is almost there, and he was furious at Hallie for apparently having sex with a black male prostitute in Philadelphia because he could have gotten STDs. He was emailing her saying, "You have to get tested." It's all in our book. But he's going to start the lies big time now, because he's going to bring in Konstantin Kulix and Lev Parnas and all of these people. He's going to say it's stolen from me. And he's going to talk about, being brave and confronting all these things. And this guy did not want me in person at a deposition. He wanted me over Zoom. So I agreed to the client's wishes and appeared over Zoom, and he still couldn't look at me in the eye. So he has and you know what? This is sociological, but with Sean Ryan and Candace, Robert, I think that it's about, first of all, Candace let this guy in her house, which is just beyond the pale to me. Maybe your kids were there, maybe you're not. I would never let Hunter Biden. I wanted the president to have the White House fumigated in January of 25 when they left, man. I would have brought in a fumigation team. What happens though is when they get in person, they lose all courage, it seems like. Meaning if you interview or whatever, I've been in I went to go see you in person. We did an interview in person with these people who have weaker characters. Their discriminatory prowess seems to drop when they're in person. When this guy comes in person, they're now friends and they're coming together. Whereas I think if Sean Ryan and Candace were over virtual, they could, they could ask him harder questions. I think it takes a special courageous person is what I'm trying to articulate. Some of these comments are hilarious, by the way. They're saying that his prostitutes were business consultants. Yes, he did try to write off the hookers as business expenses. That's what he got indicted for in the Central District of California. But what I wanted to get across is when you're dealing with not courageous people, they lose when they're in person. They cannot be tough with them. They can't look at somebody in the eye and say, "Yes, Hunter, we understand you're an addict, and we're not making fun of you for that. But tell me how you could be an addict and also get a contract with a Russian or excuse me, a Romanian oligarch and try to get him off the hook for a bribery conviction. Explain that to us." Nobody's asked him that. And he's sit down with these people for 7 hours now.
Right. And I've been noticing, I don't watch a lot of Candace interviews.
No, I don't either.
But
it's entertainment. That's fine. Candace can have an entertainment show. You and I aren't ogres, right? But don't pass it off as a journalistic investigative outlet. So
well, and I'm also wondering about her body language and the hands being crossed. And I noticed when they cut back over to her, it looks like she's looking off the line of sight with his eyes, kind of not looking at him directly in the eyes while she's even asking these questions. So I don't know exactly what that means, or if that's just kind of how she comports herself, but he seemingly is looking like eyes, eye contact into her when we're looking at him. And then she's kind of looking off camera. Something I've noticed.
Yeah. No, that's a great point.
So I don't get mad at people when they go, like, was that your cocaine? Like, well, number one, the White House. It's like, this just doesn't make any sense. I had 7 Secret Service agents with me at any given time, everywhere I went. The idea that I was in a situation room and would decide to drop off.
Logical fallacy.
But beyond that silliness is I don't blame people for not realizing that I have worked my effing ass off. I mean, in this environment, the proudest thing that I've ever done is stay clean and sober through all of that. Every piece of it, right? Both the trials, through the accusations, through the, Alexander Smirnoffs and Gallups and Konstantin Kuliks and Lev Parnases and Rudy's and Steve Bannon's and all of that. Is it purely because of the love of the people around me and my willingness to own it all? I'm sitting in front of you.
Yeah.
And you're not taking that away from me.
Right.
No, and by the way, that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
The realization at one point is that you can try. I have no fear. No fear. And that doesn't, that's why I'm here. More than anything is because
he fears his daughter.
Probably, I'm certain that we disagree on a lot of stuff, but there used to be a time, Candace, where you and I could sit down together and disagree about tax policy and disagree about, the Catholic Church's view on abortion, or disagree with, whatever the subject may be, and still be able to go have a meal together.
Right. I talk about that often on my show. Like I back when I was left leaning in college, my best friend was Republican conservative. Like it wasn't
That's
so
an understatement.
at each other's throats and hating each other and wanting to.
She was more than left leaning. She started basically a doxing. Well, I won't call it doxing because doxing has a legal definition, and we don't know whether doxing is a mens rea thing, as you know, as a criminal defense attorney. You have to have a mens rea component. But she basically started a site that would call out right-wing people. So she was more than left-wing. I know left-leaning people. They don't start websites like that.
Yeah, and it feels like Hunter's doing this persuasion maneuver where he's trying to say that certain things are off limits or have become off limits. Like we used to be able to talk tax policy. We used to be able to talk about these other things. Now we're talking about things like my laptop and my addiction and my personal life. And you shouldn't be doing that. That's all off limits. And then, rewinding a bit, he's kind of doing the same thing with we're all kind of addicts, right? Yeah, maybe I was a crack addict, but we're all kind of addicts. How many times you look at your phone? Like you're just like me, the everyday addict. And now you're also crossing the line if you're interested in the laptop or, the prurient interest type of excuse. You are the one who is perverted by trying to dig into my past.
He's a schmoozer. I'm not saying he's not a charmer. He's not at an Archer level.
Good. It's good persuasion.
But that's why we're doing this. If anybody in the comments says, why are you doing this? Because I'm not trying to convince 80% of the entertainment viewers of Candace's show, but the 20% I'm trying to reach, and they will be taken by that schmoozing.
Destroy one another, and you kind of see the good and the bad and go, well, this is why I have this perspective, and perspectives could change, and that was allowed too. I think about what it was that, just revisiting what made a lot of people, including myself, so angry about you. Or I guess it wasn't really about you. It was the gaslighting. It was the letter that came from people saying it was Russian propaganda. That is what is driving us crazy about the Epstein files right now. It's what's actually leading, ironically, to the collapse of the MAGA support, is we don't want to be gaslit. Yeah. And to be fair, it wasn't you. That's why it was so refreshing when you were like, yes, I had a crack addiction. This is me. I did this. I was with hookers.
Yeah.
What?
We know, based on documented email evidence, that it was his father's campaign, specifically Anthony Blinken, who reached out to Michael Morrell to cook up that letter, Robert. It's a total lie. And why is she saying that? A lie from a legal definition requires knowledge of its falsity. She's ignorant. Candace doesn't know that because she's not an investigator. She didn't look at the documents like you and me do. Why? How did I discover you? Because you were going through the court documents. She doesn't know that his father's campaign reached out to Michael Morrell to do the letter. We know that.
That was the
And that's why
51
we're
laptop
doing
letter
this.
that everybody knows about. That was John Brennan, and the CIA was basically behind that, and they all signed off on the thing. And then Anthony Blinken was just a campaign advisor at the time, right? And then by delivering that, they delivered this whole Russia collusion hoax thing, Russian misinformation thing, that they then raced through the CIA. They got it approved for publication, I think, in record time.
Yep.
Former CIA director Mike Morrell was on it. He was a contractor at the time, although he disputes that. And I think they even used CIA facilities to draft that letter up. And they did it in record time. The pre-publication review board said, yep, here you go. And they dished it back over to Blinken. He gave it to Joe. They had to get it done quickly because of the debate. Then Joe brought it up during the debate. And then once they, install Joe, then they make Anthony Blinken the Secretary of State. Like, that's his reward.
He's got the quid, the pro, and the Joe. I love using that Latin phraseology with Joe's first name. I love it. I love that it rhymes. But that came direct. What my point is that Candace is wrong. I'm not going to call it a lie because she's ignorant. Lie requires knowledge of its falsity. It came from Hunter's father's campaign directly. It wasn't these other people working on their own accord, which is what Candace is going to falsely say.
But you weren't speaking for you. And there were literally a bunch of people that were coming out and saying, this is not real. Yeah. And that is the most infuriating thing because everyone's average. Everyone can connect with addiction. Everyone can have this conversation. Actually, if you would come out and I probably in that environment, obviously, maybe there would have been a different result because we were at each other's throats.
No, exactly.
But that is what made people so angry. It was like, nope, he never smoked crack. It wasn't real. The laptop is Russian propaganda. We're like, guys, what is this?
Yeah, by the way, here's the problem, is that Steve Bannon and Rudy Giuliani saved the quote-unquote laptop, which, by the way, is bullshit. Like, if we can agree on that gaslighting, I will agree on the gaslighting of this, is that
Pause.
It was never a quote-unquote.
What is he talking about?
This is all in our book. I urge everybody to go read it. The original device is still in the hands of the FBI. John Paul Mike Isaac will tell you that today. We've never disputed. They took it via grand jury subpoena, the original device. What we have is before the FBI took it via grand jury subpoena, he created a clone hard drive. And that's what I got. And that's what everybody has got. Except Jack Maxey. He's on the reservation. And he didn't create a report because he's high all the time. What Hunter is doing is saying that because it's a cloned hard drive, you can't believe the authenticity of it, which is, of course, ridiculous. In 40 pages of our dossier, go through the Merriman Associates report and Gus Constantino's, their forensic reports, proving that there is no evidence of tampering. So just because the FBI has the original device, and by the way, was introduced as Exhibit 16 in the criminal trial, just because the FBI has the original device, that doesn't mean that the data is inauthentic. That's the sophistry he's trying to employ right now. So second time he's lied about it being stolen and that it's not a laptop. We've never said that we have the original device. Because why, Robert? It's irrelevant. As long as we can prove the chain of custody of the data, which we have, it doesn't matter whether we have the original device. That's the beauty about being in the digital age, Robert.
Right. And if he's saying that it's fraudulent, then what is he pointing to that's in your report or in any of the evidence that is the Russian disinformation? I still have never heard that part. What did they insert? What did they manipulate?
This guy sued me in federal court and lied to a federal court that this was his material. And then he goes on this podcast where he's not under oath and says that it was gaslighting and it wasn't his material. We call it Schrodinger's laptop. I've said that on this program before. The data is authentic when Hunter wants to sue me, and it's inauthentic when he's on Candace Owens' entertainment program.
Laptop. There was a hard drive of stolen and
third time he says
hacked material.
Hacked material. Stolen and hacked. Third time. No evidence for that. Not a single
wherever it came from, whether it came from a Delaware repair shop or whether it came, like Lev Parnas says, from Dmitry Firtash, who was trying to sell a hard drive, Hunter Biden's, in Ukraine, that they were looking for before the laptop repair shop guy was ever the twinkle in the eye. Just go back and look at the record. Okay. So here's the thing.
pause this.
You're absolutely.
There is no record he's pointing to. I've never met with Lev Parnas, Dmitry Firtash. It's absolutely absurd. Okay? And the idea, the reason why he's bringing up Bannon and everybody is because he's not wanting the audience. You don't know where to go to refute what he's saying with Bannon. Meaning Bannon has so many hours of his program that you wouldn't be able to go to a single source. That's the beauty of our dossier, and that's why he won't bring it up, because he will never direct people to BidenReport.com, because that will refute the lies.
You're right, and and this is like the freedom of being able to say this. It's like, yeah, they should have let me go out and talk.
Yeah.
But it was 2 weeks before the campaign, and then and then the election was over. Steve Bannon goes on and with his buddy Gao, the Chinese billionaire that's now in prison, and that is like a Chinese spy or whatever, where he got arrested on his boat and all that crap. There is a go listen to it. Go listen to the recorded conversation in which they say, like, the laptop, like, we got him. We so we collected all the salacious pictures and we put them out there. And then Rudy went out and stood on the steps of the Newcastle County Courthouse with Bernie Carrick and said, this contains child exploitation, like pure, pure bullshit, just bullshit. So on both sides,
we have a whole subsection of our report called mandated reporter violations. What occurred is this. Hunter admitted that his sister-in-law, who he was sleeping with, Hallie Biden, was apparently not letting him around his niece, Natalie, because he was, quote, this is according to Hunter through Hallie, that he was, quote, naked, walking around FaceTiming women, smoking crack. So it depends on what your definition of child exploitation is. There's no videos of Hunter having intercourse with Natalie on the laptop, but there is evidence of Hunter complaining to Joe that her mother won't allow her to see him and be around him. Jill and everybody else involved and that knew about it were mandated reporters, including his social worker sister, Ashley. So that's what we put out. That is what is in the dossier. And of course, he can't refute that because it's his own text messages. Joe's brother, Jimmy, said, quote, we're going to shove it down her effing throat, which means what? That we're going to basically retaliate against Hallie for not letting her around Hunter and for saying that he was sexually inappropriate with her. That's what's in our book.
You have this reaction, which I don't think was necessarily a coordinated reaction in the sense that, what do you do in 2 weeks? And so they come up with this, and
Anthony
they say,
Blinken
and I don't get to go out and say,
letter.
No, I was. But you know what I did? Is that come April, I write a book, and I tell everybody I was addicted to crack.
Mm-hmm.
And here's my story. And
That's
here's what happened.
Story.
And
It's
here
about
is
40%
all of the rooms that no one would ever want to admit to being in, that I was in. And it was like a blip on the radar, because everybody was now fighting about whether there was kind of a suppressed story on Twitter and whether there was this gaslighting from, and by the way, I am not here to defend any of
But then it's
people.
part of like
There was a suppressed story. The whole social media onslaught came down from Facebook and X, and they said that there was going to be a hack and leak operation, and they were preparing for some misinformation in the election. And then the stories did break. Miranda Devine had her whole story suppressed on Facebook and on X or Twitter at the time. It was completely.
And the FBI alerted them because the FBI had Rudy under surveillance. So they warned him. And remember,
political machine where they're like, we have 2 weeks to go to the election. We're going to do
his brother's widow, Robert. Sleeping with his
this
brother's
denial.
Widow.
Because we can't afford this right now, essentially.
Yeah.
And then we're going to table this, make it past these 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then by that time, first and foremost,
by
your
the way,
father won, right?
Yeah.
So, and so people are angry. They feel like the election's been stolen and that there was this entire collusion to cover a laptop, which if it was on the other side, they may have done too. This is what DC is. It's politics. But that is where I think the anger came from. Yeah. And it was just like,
I get it.
How dare you gaslight us? And then people.
Come on.
Politico would never run a letter. The Politico operation was entirely born through left-wing activists. So Candace's statement that this could have happened on the right is BS. Politico would never run a statement like that.
or the social media companies would suppress an anti-Trump story, or if he's running against Joe Biden, they would blame some foreign, misinformation in order to nuke and spike the story. That would never happen. They make it up. They actually make up the Russia collusion stuff. It doesn't even exist. It's Hillary Clinton campaign propaganda, and they just, amplify that, even though it's not real.
Then start making you this focal point of
it never had anything to do with me.
Right. It was kind of bigger than you at that point.
You know what the laptop proved?
That you were a crackhead.
There you go.
That you were deep in the throes of crack.
The laptop proved very succinctly that Hunter was operating a global money laundering and FARA operation cut out through unpaid lobbying, or through unregistered and paid lobbying work with Eric Schwerin, Devin Archer, Rob Walker, and other people involved with Rosemont Seneca and its tentacles of LLCs and shell companies. That's what it proved. Over.
All this other bullshit, bribery and all these other things that they investigated up and down during the Trump administration with a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney, with the Trump-appointed U.S. attorney, the only U.S. attorney in the country to stay on and continue to prosecute me, who then became special counsel.
False. The U.S. attorney in the Northern District of Illinois stayed on because he was prosecuting Mike Madigan. It's a lie. It's a lie.
After I got a plea deal, because I paid my taxes late, and I paid them with penalties and interest, and I owned a gun for 11.
He didn't pay his taxes late. He got a gift from Kevin Morris to the tune of millions of dollars. They papered it over after the fact as a loan, and Hunter still hasn't paid him back. So they say he paid his taxes late. No, it's all Kevin Morris's money, and they're calling it a loan, so Morris doesn't have to pay gift tax on it.
11 days, while they say I was addicted and check that box. That's it. Everybody has all the information. It's not like the Department of Justice has my digital footprint in every text message, every email. And there's not a single one in which you find that would in any way supports the really serious accusations of enriching my father, enriching himself somehow, or none of it. None of it's there. So I own whatever you want to call it. I own the.
We have not only emails, but text messages of Hunter telling his own daughter, Natalie, that he owed his father half his salary. Hunter's own text message. So take it up with him. We put it in our book, and we didn't invent the text message. Hunter sent it on January 3rd of 2019. I have it, the date. And again, this is truly big lie stuff. They always said Trump propagated the big lie. This is Hunter saying it so many times, and he's expecting people like us, Robert, to not go through it. Right. And if you go to the unreported income and gift section, I want to go through this right now, really quickly, Robert, before we move on. When you go to unreported income and gifts, which is on page 205 of our book, we'll go through the exact text message that Hunter Biden is telling Natalie. He said, "I love all of you, but I don't receive any respect, and that's fine, I guess. Works for you, apparently. I hope you still can do what I did and pay for everything for this entire family for 30 years. It's really hard. I don't doubt that. He had to spread his cheeks for a bunch of foreigners. But don't worry. Unlike Pop, I won't make you give me half your salary." So everybody can go to BidenReport.com and read that. And Naomi, by the way, she was called as a witness in his criminal trial. So we're not being mean. It's right there in the book.
BidenReport.com. Somebody's asking about it.
Yeah.
Laptop. Come. You know what? We can go through it together. If you're willing to avert your eyes to the tragedy of addiction. I mean, just the absolute tragedy of it.
Yeah.
But man, oh man, there is no space for that in discourse anymore. There's no space for the nuance of, well, that was addiction. That wasn't corruption. I did not do any business through entire 4 years. I became a painter. You know why I became a painter? Because it literally saved my life. I painted my whole life. And Melissa instinctively knew that I literally needed to like occupy my hands in early recovery, like 12 hours a day, like just, like to be able to focus on
I don't doubt
not
that.
the crushing weight of the consequences of years of addiction. And so I just sat and I painted and I painted and I painted.
His
And I
dad
decided
took
to have a
away the
show
crushing
in the
consequences.
gallery and, and offer my paintings for sale. And New York Post comes
For $500,000, they were listed at. He was getting like $50,000 to $75,000 a pop for
Yes,
some of
he
these
always
things. I think
he always cites the 500K figure as a straw man to then say he got much less than that. But who among us can sell a painting to his best friend for 80K a piece?
not even highly, credentialed longtime artists. That is a tremendous amount of money.
Yep.
out and says Hunter Biden's selling his paintings for $500,000. I have never sold a painting nor offered a painting for $500,000 in my friggin' life. And by the way, everybody knows this because every painting that I sold, everybody that bought a painting had to pay about $250,000 to defend themselves before an
False.
impeachment hearing. Go read the transcript.
There are 3 people that we know that bought his paintings: Liz Naftali, William Jocks, and Kevin Morris. No evidence that they spent $250,000. Plus, there's several buyers that we don't know yet, Robert, and they didn't subpoena. George Burgess because the Republicans are weak.
Yeah, wild.
Transcripts of people under oath. But regardless, is the laptop absolutely proved nothing, but it became this cultural touchstone. It was like it embodied the Biden crime family.
So true.
And if you wanted to be able to believe that, not wanted to be able to believe that, if you believe that because you're being told that by people that you trust that have told you that your election was stolen, that your democracy was thwarted, that the process was unfair, is that all you had to do, and I get this, is look at the pictures. It doesn't look like a good guy to me.
Right.
He
Because you weren't a good guy in the.
I just fact checked myself, and I pulled up the Washington Post, and it says the article by Miser that says the White House was crafting sale agreements that would go as high as $500,000, and Georges Burgess has said that prices for the paintings would range between $75,000 to $500,000. So he may not have gotten that for any particular painting, but that's the market cap that they were articulating in their agreements.
Mm-hmm. And Hunter would have accepted that if he would have got $500,000. They thought they could buy off the family for less.
Pictures.
No.
Yeah.
Smoking crack in a motel room with a prostitute.
Right. Like,
you know what I mean? Like they come out and like they're saying, oh, like this, like I admit it all. Not only admit it all.
He doesn't
I
admit
own
it
it
all.
I will own everything. The worst of it.
Owned everything.
All of it.
And then being like, I mean, now in retrospect, and things have changed. I mean, times have changed. Like I said, I was one of the chief people that was really angry about it. And it did, that was the exact reason why when I re-examined it, it was the gaslighting. It's the same reason why I'm angry with Trump over the Epstein thing. It's like, I can't come back from media gaslighting.
Pause.
The Trump thing is worse because it came from his own.
We were discussing the Epstein stuff last July when the DOJ put out that ridiculous press release. Hunter's father was in power for 4 years, didn't mention the Epstein files once. That's a great thing to ask your interlocutor, Candace, but this is an entertainment show.
Yeah, and she's upset about the gaslighting related to Epstein while she's being gaslit by Hunter Biden right here.
Yeah, Hunter's dad never talked about it. It's insane.
Mouth, the gaslighting. So it wasn't like people trying to cover it up. It was like Trump being like, what Epstein files? Are we still talking about the Epstein files? And so, but then things kind of changed, I think, with time.
Hunter is literally doing that right now, saying, what laptop files? What are you talking about? They were stolen. They're Russian misinformation. They're fraudulent.
And think about, Robert, how many times he talks about how they appeared and never the content. These are all the areas where he committed crimes. Just for the viewers at home who don't have the patience to read through the book. He committed fire violations in Romania, in Ukraine, in China, in Serbia, in Libya, and in Mexico. 6 different foreign nations. There might be more because he keeps lying and saying that we have every email. No, we don't. We don't have the ones. There was a whole 8-month period, Robert, where he deleted the emails right around the time he got kicked out of the Navy for crack cocaine. Okay, so we don't have those emails. This is just, we're looking through a pinhole in a hotel room door, right? And we have a portion of his digital material, but we don't have everything. And so that's another straw man that he's lying about. This guy uses logical fallacies, and she has too, all of the time. She's not as bad as Hunter. We have to be fair to her, but multiple logical fallacies throughout the entertainment show.
Also because I was definitely say I was close with Don Jr. Traveled a lot with him through the Hunter Biden laptop scandal. We talked about it, this corruption, can't believe they denied it, all these photos coming out. And then we get whatever this, Trump family is now. And it's like, man, I think it was a historian that wrote on X exactly how I feel, which is I wish I could go back to the days where I thought like Hunter Biden's art was the most corrupt deal that was done in politics. And now we're going, okay, we stood behind Trump, we fought, we shared the photos of Hunter Biden to the extent that
that's the straw man. We never thought his art was the most corrupt thing in politics. The most corrupt thing in politics at that time was billions in Ukrainian aid that went to the slush fund in Ukraine that we can't even have an accounting for. So again, that's another straw man. Nobody was saying it was the most corrupt thing. We were just saying that it was scummy.
That we could, and now we have their family engaged in so many corrupt deals, the meme coins, the taking advantage of people, and you go, okay, well, what we actually have is DC is corrupt. Politics is corrupt. And I think it is kind of a unifying point, not to excuse, the gaslighting of people for 2 weeks, which made people super angry. But I do think it's just a different time where people are kind of going back and examining. And I feel actually terrible realizing that you were finally clean. And then it's just this humiliation ritual over and over and over again of people putting everything out there and not realizing also your kids are facing this consequence as well, which people do not think about a lot of times when they publish stories. Like I even was reticent and didn't cover the Chrissy Nome thing because the first thing that came to my mind.
Do they have kids?
These are kids. Like I'm like, these are kids that are about to go to college. Like, and why are they doing this? Because she's in politics, right? And so this becomes, they don't think about the children. And yeah, I mean, I think now that I have kids too, I think there's just like, wow, they don't sign up for what I do for podcasting. Kids don't sign up for that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Number one though, kids are way more resilient than you think. They're so much tougher. And I know, my girls have like, and they love me and deeply, and I can 100% accept that love now and return it with everything that I have to offer. But part of what you're describing is politics in memoriam, part of it, but something's changed, Candace. There is a meanness, a willingness to adopt very, very un-American tactics.
Pause real quick. I want everybody to know this guy's a history degree from Georgetown. He has no idea, apparently, what happened in the 19th century. You had representatives beating each other with their canes. These people have no idea what they're saying. It's always been contentious. Nobody ever was going after Hunter's kids and saying that his kids were smoking crack. So just because you have kids doesn't mean you're immune from legitimate criticism, or every African warlord who has a litter of children from a half a dozen women would be immune from criticism. I have kids. You can't be held morally responsible for what your kids do. That's not the case with Joe because he was literally enabling him.
Opponents, because it become a zero-sum game. It's not just that I disagree with you. It's you need to be punished. You need to be punished for what you believe. There's this incredible show. I really want to meet them one day. I don't know if you listened to it. It's called The Necessary Conversation. Have you listened to that? Incredible. It's a brother and a sister who are progressives. One lives in LA and one lives in Austin. Or something like that. And she runs a bakery. His sister. And a mom and dad. And they are ultra MAGA. And I think they were in, Missouri somewhere. Okay? And I mean don't take their caps off. Trump literally can do no wrong. He's playing 4D chess on the Epstein thing. I know he said no war in Iran, but he must have a reason for it, and you can't convince. Literally, but they have this conversation, and they have real issues with each other. The daughter gets really mad at the dad. Dad, you were a jerk to us when we were kids. You made me. But then she has this conversation with her mom, who loves animals, and taught her about empathy. And they would adopt all, these animals, and they would, you find out her dad taught, or coached all of their little league games, and she was a softball player. And if a kid couldn't afford the uniform, the dad would quietly go out and buy the uniform. And he's awful on this thing, by the way. He's in terms of the way that he speaks and speaks to them, and he's tough, and I don't give a shit, and drop a bomb on them, kind of, thing. But it's so informative. Is that before? That's a normal family. That's a thing. Before, you and I could meet at a restaurant in Georgetown,
Pause.
and your husband.
This is another straw man. Nobody's stopping them from doing that now. Again, I'm not mad at Sean Ryan or Candace Owens for having this miscreant on their program. They're both adults. They can do what they want, Robert. What we're about is the truth being told. So you should talk to everybody. I follow liberals and leftists on Twitter. I listen to everything anybody is saying. But we have a duty to call out lies and to expose the truth. That's what we're about. So it's not that we're mad at them. I am surprised that she let Hunter Biden, just knowing what's underneath his fingernails, into her home and her studio. But nobody's mad at them for talking. And you can go to a diner and eat with some leftist today. Nobody's stopping you and me or anybody else from doing that. You know why they don't do it? Because most leftists are crazy. And the purple-haired crowd is a type of person that you don't want to spend time with.
Well, and it feels like she's facilitating the rehabilitation of his image and enabling him to really continue double standards. He is not being asked questions, hard questions about his father, but then simultaneously will come back and dump on Trump. So it is a political interview, but it's not a political interview both directions, kind of only one direction.
And my wife, and we could have dinner together, and like with Tucker, I knew Tucker, you know what I mean? And like you could have dinner together and think that what Tucker was saying was crazy, and I don't agree with, and I don't agree with, half the stuff. But you know what it didn't mean? It didn't mean that I thought that he should be tried for treason and executed. And that's what happened to me. And I mean that not figuratively. I mean it literally. That's what people were saying. And that's what people of real importance were saying. Those were the words that were coming out of the mouth. And I'm paraphrasing of people like Steve Bannon and people like Rudy Giuliani, people of authority. And it changes everything. Is how can you even have a discussion, for instance? How could I go out and talk about, how could I respond? Was that cocaine mine?
Just
like, what do you want?
hold
You want
a
me to take a
press
drug test?
conference,
Because
man.
I'm taking a drug test almost weekly for the Department of Corrections and probation. I have a probation officer. I'm on release until trial. But what do you do? Is that the statement that you make to the New York Post? It's impossible. It becomes impossible. But what do? You realize this.
He's not denying
And
it.
I don't know
because
if
it's
you
true.
feel this way in your own life. Is that what the real problem is? It's not out there. It's not that person. If I could just get Steve Bannon to tell the truth, if I could just get Rudy Giuliani to stop lying about me, if I could just get Konstantin Kulak to say that he wrote
these
the
people.
it's not there. You realize in order to survive, it's all inside. Every single piece of it is about figuring out how to love yourself, not live in that shame, and in order for you to be able to be of service first, or Melissa, return the beautiful thing that she gave me, which was a chance. To be of service to my dad.
This is the Oprah
To
moment.
return the unconditional love, which is not love without consequences, not love without accountability. It's just knowing that no matter what, even through the consequences and being held accountable, that person still loves me.
All right, you guys.
So what was his service to his father? Because we had a lot of questions about him being in the White House, maybe manipulating policy. And if that's true, then we saw the policies out of the Biden White House, which were largely to attack Trump and MAGA in many ways. So he just got done lecturing everybody about how we can't have civil conversations anymore. The first thing that Joe Biden did after J6 was unleash the FBI on hundreds of innocent people who were invited into the Capitol and put them in jail. So it's not, you're having these friendly disagreements anymore. You're targeting your political opponents to take them out.
Yes. Couldn't have said it better. Got to go through the life insurance. I do have Ethos, but I didn't type in Candace for 10% off.
Between your dad, because I think since the laptop scandal, in my mind, it was I guess a bit cartoonish, where it was like, well, you can do whatever you want. Go ahead, smoke crack. We're just powerful. We'll cover it. We'll do it. Like that's whatever. We've had so much power. We acquired so much power. And then when I sort of saw you really defending your dad over this George Clooney thing, I was like,
it was Russian misinformation.
Yep.
okay, this is just a normal father-son relationship. Like, people can't apply that for some reason when you're talking about a president or somebody that has access to power, but he just loves his dad. And this is the way any normal person would defend their dad. If they said something about your father, if they said something about your son, like, this is so normal that I think that's what was a bit of like resting for me. I was like, this is very normal dynamic. He doesn't care if Jake Tapper's on his side. He doesn't care if George Clooney is on his side. That's his dad that you're talking about. And he's having a
My favorite comment so far came from an Andrew Plumtree 2649. Phenomenal stuff. They both used this. Hunter used this phrase twice, I believe, in this interview based on the transcript, that Candace was saying her truth and that Hunter was saying his truth. That is BS. There's no such thing. There is the truth, and then there are delusions with different shades of craziness. So nobody has a truth. There's the truth, and Hunter doesn't live in reality, and I appreciate this guy bringing that up.
Natural reaction that I would have if someone was talking about my dad, my grandparents, my sister, my cousin, even when they do something wrong, by the way. Like, it's like, okay, no, but like, that's my family member who did something
and
wrong.
Your kids.
And so you have no right, and I will breathe fire on someone. And that's kind of, and you're right. And now it's getting...
Look at what she's saying. Even when somebody's in the wrong and their dad is the U.S. president with statutory and constitutional power, you can't criticize them. So it's different if it's a private figure, right? So Candace is saying if somebody's going after her family, yeah, I would defend, not when they're in the wrong. Candace is saying to defend somebody even when they're in the wrong, because that's my family member and you can't do that. It's a totally different situation with Hunter because his dad is the president. His dad is the president. Somebody said Jesus is the truth. As Trump would say, so true. So true about that. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. And you know what Hunter called Jesus? A figment of the imagination of the collective frightened. That's what he called God to his friend George Masiris.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point there, because in the 12 steps, which I do believe he mentioned explicitly here, that one of the steps is that you're powerless and you turn your care over to the will of God, and you have a higher power. Doesn't necessarily have to be Jesus, but you have a higher power, because if your power comes from yourself, then you're a fallible person. You make mistakes and you rely on your brain, and your brain will deceive you and lie to you. So you have to have something objective to which you can, source your power from. And I don't think I've heard him mention that at all this entire time, even though he wants to talk the platitudes of recovery.
So true.
Dirtier. The games people are playing are dirtier, and it is about wanting you to feel unsafe. And I think that is something that is so new when you have people posting your address, posting where you are, knowing that you have children. And I really do believe, and it is a perspective. Like, for me, it was me changing my mind.
She's going to bitch about something Tim Pool did. These people have no perspective. You know how many, it's the 250th anniversary of our Declaration of Independence. 30% of the founders had their homes burned down. They're saying, this is so new. Of course, I'm a Christian. I don't want anybody to suffer unwarranted violence. You don't either. But this idea that this is so new, these people are so ignorant. When they signed the Declaration in the summer of 1776, some of them, a portion of them, had their stuff burned. They were wanted men. So this idea of trying to tell the truth and that you're somehow in harm's way and that's new, it's ridiculous.
On Israel, and suddenly I'm getting the New York Post treatment, and I'm getting all these people coming after me, and I'm going, this is my perspective. You're welcome to try to debate me on why I feel the way I feel about, which is because I have two eyes, about what's happening in Gaza. But to do these tactics where you're trying to destroy people that feels very, very new to me.
Yeah, and let's be not let's be honest. I hate that phrase. Okay, I got it from my perspective. Is this? I know where that started.
Perspective,
and that started when Donald Trump, from rally stages, started the Where's Hunter? Or yell, Where's Hunter? Call and response crowds. And then they printed t-shirts, and then they made hats, and then they made mugs. Where's Hunter?
This guy's 56.
And then they showed up my door. I didn't have any security. I didn't have anybody.
There's no evidence for this, possibly.
In my life.
He's going to say that people went to his front door, ran his wife off the road. There's no police report. Nothing. If somebody ran my wife off the road, there'd be a police report and an investigation. He's offered none of that. There's no evidence for anything he's going to say here.
Particularly at that time. And they literally showed up at my door with bullhorns and MAGA hats, and on the direct, and the way that they got there is the New York Post published on the front page, on its cover, an aerial view of my home with the address, and then in the thing said, and if you stand here at this, on this part of the street, you can see, and there are floor to ceiling windows, and and so they showed up.
Wow.
And Melissa was 6 months pregnant at the time. She got in the car because she was alone at the time, and sped off, and they followed her and they ran her off the road. She panicked, and then she got and they did it again, and they surrounded her, and that's new, man.
That is new.
And like similar to you, is it like before I sat down, I heard where you live, what the level of security that you have or didn't have, and what your perimeter of your property is like. How the hell do I know that? And how is that even remotely safe? Because you have people who now you basically spoke your truth, and they decided that you cannot exist, and so therefore, I don't know what's going to happen. But for some reason, I think it's appropriate for me to say, tell you what Candace's address is, who lives there, and the level of security she
Tim
has.
Pool doing that was one of the most. It was so obvious what he was doing.
My dad said to me, "I have to stop saying the F word."
But it was like seriously, that to me was like it's a declaration of war. Like they know I homeschool my kids, they know, and he's describing the security apparatus, and he's doing it in this rant, trying to be impassioned about the fact that I don't support Israel or I don't support whatever his motivation was. There was zero reason that you would be describing the perimeter of my house outside of wanting someone to get harmed. And like, first of all, like I'm not like Tucker Carlson, and I say this to people all the time. That's why I get so worried, because when Tucker gets accosted in public, he just has this like total happy warrior demeanor. I will claw someone's eyes out for my kids. Like I am not the property to try. We will shoot you. Like I will shoot you, and I will kill you, and I will happily go to prison before you have one opportunity to even make. I'm not even going to think about whether you're going to hurt my kids.
You sound exactly like
that's me. That's just me. And I've said over and over on my podcast, I will smile in my mugshot, okay, because I did the right thing, and I have no qualms about that. So when he did that, I was like, okay, this little beanie boy, little beanie boy, I see exactly what you're doing. The whole world sees what you're doing, and you are doing something because you want my children to get harmed. And then if something happens to them, you're going to go, well, I don't know how that happened, as I was describing the perimeter of her home and talking about what her security is, which was inaccurate.
Candace, but that's like, what are we even talking about? That's exactly why they do it. Is that even if the chance is this small, the reason that they do it is exactly that, is to make you really afraid, not for yourself, for your 4 kids, for your family, for the people that work around you. It's like, and by the way, I'll tell you, is that I have the same approach that I think Tucker has to it, which is, and I don't know, which is basically like, I can handle, like, I can diffuse a situation, I can do it. Melissa, people kill you.
Yeah, I'll kill you, and I'll ask questions later.
And she did exactly the same. And you know what really worries me? Is all of a sudden, we're all talking about violence. Like, you're talking about violence. Violence is defense, but now you're talking about the violence. And then they kind of like go, oh, you're gaslighting us. This is bullshit. You're fine. You're really rich, and you this and that. You can take care of yourself. It's like, bullshit. Did you see what just happened to my best friend?
Yeah. Like, I mean, we
Like,
just
what are
watched
you talking
Charlie
about?
and he had a
They
full
weren't
security
best friends.
apparatus.
Yeah.
We still don't know what happened to Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
There's zero interest. That's another thing that just completely,
There's not
for me,
zero
was like
interest.
done with Trump whatsoever. Like, I mean, there's just no way for someone who came from the inside and watched the work that Charlie did to get these people elected. Don Jr. was like a brother to Charlie, literally like a brother to him.
Yeah.
And to see the Trump brothers, to see Donald Trump himself, Kash Patel, who Charlie pushed for him to lead the FBI, had him on his podcast. JD Vance, like, came out of nowhere. Charlie was like not sleeping to make that happen. And to see all of these people have zero interest in the obvious holes in the story, even if ultimately the holes get filled and there's a picture that makes sense, which I put that at a 0% chance. But let's just, the fact that they have zero interest and they're just accepting the narrative, like what this has done to me, and I've said this, I'm just done with politics. I'm just done with politics because
She's not done
I
with
can't
politics.
even begin to comprehend it. And again, that element of gaslighting that's happening here, where they're pretending that the people who are noticing that none of this is making sense are the crazy ones, and everyone else who's like, nope, turn the chapter, a week later, it's all solved. And this is how it went down, and none of it makes sense, but just accept this slop. It is the most infuriating thing, and it's just fully removed the scales in my eyes, and I've stopped with this left versus right, Democrat versus Republican. I'm like, this is sheer evil versus good.
By the way.
This is like sheer evil.
But by the way,
There it is.
exactly.
Like,
Can we
I'm like,
rewind it? There's
is-
the Oprah moment. Look at that. That's what
That
Oprah
hand
does.
touch.
Look at this.
and I've stopped
Oh, I
with this
love
left versus right, Democrat versus Republican. I'm like, this is sheer evil versus good.
By the way.
This is like sheer
Wow.
evil.
But by the way, for real, exactly.
Like, I'm like,
Exactly. It is. It
I
is
got you.
good
She
versus
he
evil.
buttered her up. He's
It
got
is-
her where he wants her now.
they have torn the mask off of this. I said to you before, is that I pray to God that by the end of this, that you think of me as a friend, because if anything ever happened to me, I want you and Melissa team up. You'd like, oh my God.
It's not happening with
by the way,
Charlie Kirk.
And the criticism of you for asking the questions for someone who was like a brother to you is like
a brother.
What the F are you talking about?
Yeah. That's
what
the
are you talking
gaslighting.
about?
It's like,
by the
how
way,
dare you care?
Coming from someone who you've attacked and you've and politically, you've had all of your criticism, which I have no problem with, and we disagree on so many things. But I listen to you and I go, right on. Like Epstein, like you want to figure out why they don't want to let the release all the Epstein files? All you got to do is literally look at a picture of Trump standing on his stage at his inauguration and look behind him.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like every single person.
He's protecting his donors without question.
I mean, it's crazy. Like Paolo Zampoli and this and that and the other thing and all of these things. It's like, okay. And by the way, anyway, my point is it's like, when are people going to kind of wake up to the fact, and it's not left or right. This is a really, really horrible group of people.
Mm-hmm.
They're pulling strings that impact us all, and they make us think that because you and I disagree on the graduated tax rate or some social issue, is that we are sworn enemies.
Mm-hmm.
Not just like sworn enemies, that I deserve violence.
And I could see them, and it does seem like both sides have woken up without question. My audience is now split, and I still say what I believe. I haven't changed my position on abortion. I'm Catholic. I have, there's nothing that has changed. I think they're just hearing me for the first time, and I do think there was something about the Charlie Kirk assassination that everyone just sort of looked up. We just sort of all looked up at the machine and was like, wait a second, what is this? Because they expected Trump to be ride or die. They expected cash. I mean, wow, this is going to be solved in the clearest way possible, because the entire political apparatus that has the power in the Department of Justice is in the hands of Charlie Kirk's friends. Like, that was how I felt, right? This is it. No, whoever did this is never going to get away with it, because these are Charlie's friends. And what did we get?
They're the people that Charlie Kirk made.
Charlie Kirk made these people. That's exactly right. He led a youth
Hunter
revolution
no
to get these people elected in power. He was ride or die to
the level of disloyalty or fear. I don't know what it is.
Disloyalty.
The only thing he has authority on is smoking crack and getting through a crack addiction. Him offering analysis on right-wing intra fights is insulting to me.
Guided by fear, but it's
so
disloyalty.
disturbing.
It's disturbing, and I cannot forgive Trump, the Trump family, what they have done, what they have not done for Charlie.
Can I keep one of these?
Yeah,
conspiracy?
yeah. And I'm full on.
So maybe that's the nexus. Like, why is she even talking to him? Is it because she's mad at Trump and MAGA, and she knows he's going to be mad at Trump and MAGA, and so that's going to be their commonality, and they can just kind of have a wine fest about that?
Well, that's if it would make me more mad if this were an investigative outlet, but because this is center-right Oprah, I can temper my anger, and my interest in this only applies to the verifiable lies based on his laptop that Hunter has told, and the litigation with the mother of his child. But this is entertainment to me. So, meaning this is Oprah moment. This is holding hands. We can all just kumbaya, come together. This is insulting. But you and I don't watch Oprah.
I'm like, call me a conspiracy. I'm like you, where I'm like, oh, what is the shame tactic of the day? You're calling me a conspiracy theorist. Great. I'm like, you'd be a fool to believe the stuff that they're telling us today. The stories are telling us. I mean, it is something that is just so disturbing. And I think that the Charlie assassination was just so crazy, like, because he was so Republican conservative, but I think it's brought people together in a productive way.
Yeah. Look, I'm here, and you're here, and I really think that we're not unique. I think very, very kind of emblematic is that, like, I'm like, let's put the past, not behind us. Like, I'll explain anything you want. I'll talk about anything that you want to talk about, that you still have questions about, or that anybody is it. But like, this isn't right. This what we're witnessing right now is not right. Mm-hmm. The level of corruption, the obfuscation, the I mean, wild. Whether it's Butler or Charlie or these things that it's just not right. And I mean, it's so glaringly not right. It's almost as if they're just saying,
F
like,
you.
F you.
They're not even trying. We don't even get good psyops anymore. And that's what I keep saying. I'm like, it's so disrespectful that we're not even getting good psyops anymore. Like we're supposed to believe he survived four assassination attempts, the first president that's ever survived 4 assassination attempts. They lie to us about things, they make a big deal, and then they make it want to, it's going to go away. They're going to keep pretending and telling us that this is a totally normal grieving widow. Okay, no one's buying that. Like that something's just not right here. Everyone can see that this is not how you would react to your husband being shot. And this sort of just, I'm fine, and I like 2 weeks later I fully accept the narrative. I have no interest in anything else. It's over. Let's close it. I forgive him. Let's move on. You're asking us to abandon our common sense and our humanity is what you're asking us to do. And that kind of seems like where we're at. Like they're insisting on this. And I'm going, where is this going to go? Because we're not doing the thing they want us to do. Like they are just constantly giving us slop all the time. I mean, even the recent White House Correspondents' Dinner, there was so much theater to it after, so much theater. And now it's kind of, okay, Secret Service maybe shot each other and we're just going to kind of quietly move on. But Trump needs a ballroom. Like that's a normal reaction. Hey, there's a shooting duck. Hey, well, we better get that ballroom.
And by the way, it's going to cost $1 billion now. And by the way, it's not from donors. And by the way, we're going to do it. Like, it's just the constant, like, talk about gaslighting.
This has been just this, and we're not even, are we even a year into Trump's second term?
We're a little over a year.
A little over a year in a second term. And I don't think there's just been, I'm like, how are we going to deal with 4 years of just being gaslit every 5 seconds and told that?
Even if what they're saying is true and it's not, meaning I'm taking, let's just, for the purpose of argument, say that the Epstein debacle has been a catastrophe, and I think PR-wise it has. 20 million illegals doesn't even compare, Robert. Doesn't even compare. And the ballroom thing is so stupid. Like this bitching about the ballroom. It's a ballroom. Sorry, go ahead.
I agree with you, and it feels like it's just an opportunity for them to commiserate with each other.
Yes.
Politically about Trump without actually holding the mirror up to Biden and saying, hey, a lot of the same critiques about abuse of women, whether they're adult or underage, or the movement of women for your own self-enjoyment, all of, corruption with Biden and his Burisma money and painting money and, the connections to Joe as VP, the classified documents, the double standard with all of that. She's upset about these issues, and so is he, but she's got somebody right here to talk to about those issues, who was on the inside, who was responsible for a lot of those issues, and it's just being glazed over. It's like wild. I feel like
that's why the kindest thing you and I can say is that this is not an investigative outlet, because it's just pathetic. It's really an entertainment thing, and that's why I'm not talking. I want to get through this at a reasonable hour for people. That's why I'm not going through some of this Oprah stuff. I'm only going through the verifiable lies.
But MAGA, literally MAGA, is not MAGA anymore. And what was actually never Trump, which was actually pro-Hillary Clinton, if you think about it, that's now MAGA. It's literally people who have been against Trump the entire time who are lecturing us about this stuff, like the Mark Levins and the Ben Shapiros, and like we're MAGA, the Laura Loomers, like, we're MAGA now. Okay, great, then I'm not MAGA. Like I've never agreed with these people. I am opposed to these people's ideas. I am opposed to unleashing an actual lunatic who has had to be Baker acted and put on Psych 5150 holds by her own parents who fear her. I'm opposed to that actually being unleashed upon the population.
Melissa always uses that 5150. I had that. She goes, that person's going to get 5150. I go, what are you talking about? What's 5150?
You're telling us this is MAGA now. Like this is what we do. And
so it's quick. He's talking about Melissa. I was quietly watching her husband's limited hangout criminal trial, and she went and yelled and spit in my face with Secret Service protection and called me a quote effing Nazi. That's who Hunter is name dropping. That Melissa says people need to be institutionalized. The slang for 5150. That's who is saying other people need to be institutionalized. And I think this is a hunch, and I always qualify something if I don't have direct evidence for it. But I think that it's possible that Melissa herself had addiction issues, and that's how she and Hunter met. Because you meet a lot of people in rehab. You do.
It's been a challenging time because you do have to have like the humility to admit that I'm quite embarrassed
Candace,
about it.
The president of the United States of America has posted images of himself as a king, I think, half a dozen times now.
Yeah.
Like, when are people going to wake up and go,
that was
okay,
a bad, stupid joke.
But that's what you want.
Nobody
and by the way,
that.
If that's what you want, then you know what? I know that there is the vast majority of Americans, but some that are really going to really have a problem.
Yeah.
Really have a problem.
I am MAGA.
God forbid. And this whole thing is that we all need allies now because they do have an enormous amount of power. You know, one of the things that I always think about is that it's so easy to silence people, but it would be particularly easy, for instance, to go like if someone like
he sought a permanent injunction against our book, Robert. This guy's talking about silencing people. He sought a permanent injunction against the release of our book. They specifically cite the book in the Central District of California lawsuit.
the whole cocaine in the White House thing. By the way, I look at your premise. Is that like you can believe whatever you want to believe, but I know my truth.
My truth. There it is.
That's all I can do.
And you preferred crack anyways.
100%. Okay, and I would
The
not.
evidence is
And by the way,
overwhelming. He
I would
preferred
not have.
crack.
I would not have forgotten it in a cubby.
Not if you're crawling on
to
the
go
floor.
into the Situation Room, which I've never been in before. Okay, exactly. I mean, Jesus Christ. Anyway, but my point is that what if they, what if I'm flying back to LA and and I go through security and they find drugs in my bag? Who would believe me that I'm clean and sober? Who would possibly believe me?
No one.
No one. No one. And I could take drug tests and I could prove it and I could, I mean, literally, I pack my bag.
He's
in front
never
of
proved
a
that he's
witness
sober.
everywhere I go.
He
So that at
didn't
least I
release
would
a
be able to say
single drug
that.
test, Robert. I'm not
Here's the
saying
crazy
he
part.
isn't.
Is the
I'm saying
idea
he's just
that
asserting
I
it.
would think that there is a government in power capable of doing that. It says everything anyone needs to know about where we are.
Yeah.
The idea that you feel unsafe in the United States of America because you disagree with the current administration.
His father hunted down grandmas who went inside the Capitol and who didn't go inside the Capitol. That were just in his own father's Secret Service visited me at my house twice. And he's talking about feeling unsafe. But I don't bitch about it all the time because I'm not like these people, right? It's wrong. But the fact that he's now complaining about contrived feeling unsafe. And remember what they're trying to do. They're trying to equate feeling unsafe with actually being unsafe, right? That's why words aren't violence. That's why I don't believe in hate crime jurisprudence, meaning I believe that people should be punished based on what they did, not what was in their mind. There is no such thing as words are violence. Words themselves are violence. Obviously, I'm well aware of the First Amendment jurisprudence about true threats. I get all of that. I litigated with these things. But I'm saying just because somebody feels unsafe doesn't equate to them being unsafe.
On a issue that 70% of Americans agree with
Just
you
pulled
on.
that figure out of his ass.
Like, I think we all can agree is that we need to stop
Sorry.
the wholesale murder of a population in Gaza.
That's a straw man.
Whatever you
Of
think about
course.
my father's policy as it relates to, I always say to people, do you know one thing he didn't do? He didn't greenlight to turn Gaza into a Trump golf course, with the maitre d' being Jared Kushner with
I loathe
$4 billion
Jared
in
Kushner.
Saudi
He's
money.
another straw man.
Despicable.
Nobody,
It's just like they did the deal before.
nobody
I mean, when he
likes Jared
posted that,
Kushner.
I'll never forget that, posted the Trump, like, here's what Gaza could be, and like I could have anyone to build.
Yeah, and I don't think that the Democratic Party was real thrilled with Biden's Gaza policy either, and that was one of the
course
key
it
points
wasn't.
that was left out of the entire DNC postmortem memo in the aftermath.
Yes, and guess what? Guess who represented Jared Kushner? Hunter's attorney, Abby Lowell. Hunter and Jared Kushner share an attorney, corrupt Abby Lowell. This is all in our book.
Building, and I was like,
But literally, that's what they're doing.
this is dead children. Like, you're literally saying this is all going to be fine because we're going to get out of a Trump resort or something. Positively despicable. I mean, just positively despicable, tasteless, indefensible. And
it's not a joke,
yes,
though, is my point.
Jared, it wasn't a joke. And
That's what they're doing it out in the open. I mean, it's not as if they're hiding it in any way.
Mhm.
I mean, they are making deals as they go through. Like I always say to people, it's like, you had such a problem with me. I didn't do any
I'll
business.
take the paintings.
I didn't do a single business. Every single person that bought a painting from me during
we
the time
don't.
my dad was there in office.
I
had
not
two
true.
shows and probably sold a total of 20 paintings and 13 of them to my best friend. And that's it. That's it.
It's not it.
And you had a problem, not you. Well, you too, but had a problem with me as being this emblem of corruption.
You are.
These guys, okay.
Totally.
Don Jr. got the single largest loan guarantee from the Department of Defense ever handed out of over $600 million for an energy company, a fusion energy company, of which he has zero experience in. They have
The
gotten
same amount that
Jared
you have
Kushner,
in Ukraine.
who's never run a private equity fund, has now a $4 billion private equity fund with 80% of the money coming from the Middle East, of which he continues to raise as he is the ambassador at large on behalf of the Trump administration, not as a political appointee, but simply as a son-in-law of the president.
I loathe Jared Kushner.
To come to a peace deal of a war in Iran that they started that has cost the economy billions and billions of dollars for a war nobody wanted. That every president before him, was pressured by the Israelis to get into. And every single one, regardless what you think of them, from Jimmy Carter, through President Reagan, through both of the Bushes, through Clinton, through my dad, said, you're out of your damn minds.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the reason why. This is
so
what's
he
going to happen.
brings up his father.
So who benefits right now?
But she
You know who
won't.
benefits?
Yeah, that's an interesting point.
People that are making trades of billions of dollars on market manipulation that occur.
Insider
And we all know
trading has
it's
been-
literally out in the open. But who's gonna?
Her father had a
What's
longer.
that? You will not get to scream out at me. Like, I am so far off the Trump chain. He's posting
No,
me.
by the way-
Robert, but we spent tens of more billions of dollars in Ukraine. She won't even talk about that.
And I'm not even saying it.
Like,
for the-
it's
for the
embarrassing.
purposes of, like,
But it
yeah.
is embarrassing. It is embarrassing because we got behind him as the answer to corruption. We thought he was going to be this outsider. You know, he's going to go to DC. He's going to drain the swamp, and then he became the Loch Ness monster. You know, and so it's like I don't know what it is about that swamp, but you get swimming in it, and it's like people do this. And yes, it has been for Israel. Not to say that Trump wasn't pro-Israel. Most presidents actually are pro-Israel when they go in there and
His
they go
father's
anti-Israel. They
huge
kind of end up dead.
Zionist, too.
But it's or they sort of get kicked out. If you want to talk about Nixon and the scandal of Watergate, which I've revisited and did think that had a lot more to do with his shifting viewpoints, but that wasn't the issue. Like, I was pro-Israel, generally speaking, not very educated about the topic. It's this level of corruption that you're talking about when you are willing to let real Americans be harmed, their day-to-day lives be harmed. They're suffering at the gas pump. Their groceries are expensive. All at so that you could further enrich. How much more money does Trump family need? I mean, just like literally, how much more money do you need like that you're going to allow this to happen? Don't you just want to have now the legacy of being a good president? I mean, this is...
Yeah, well, I'm saying to you about like the cryptocurrency thing. I think there's incredible promise in cryptocurrency. I believe in the, meme token. I'll do something one day to create a community, and there's really good reasons to do it. There's really interesting ways, and
I
know
can't
we
wait
can
for the
disagree.
Hunter
I just
meme
happen to be
coin.
kind of like a
Crypto guy.
I mean, just because of my I think it is incredible freedom in a world in which we've been controlled by banks. So if you have the same problem that I have with big pharma banks and the Fed and these like where does money come from kind of thing, is it like I truly believe in what
Hunter's into
Satoshi,
sound money now.
kind of the manifesto of Bitcoin. But that's just me, regardless.
What a joke.
My point is that they had such an opportunity. They had such an opportunity. I'll give you this. I want you to look at the conspiracy theories. Go look up Gal Luft and Alexander Smirnov.
Who
They're
aren't
the
in our
two
book, by the
principal
way.
individuals that
Principal
made
individuals.
the only claim that people hung their hat in Congress and elsewhere as it relates to my dad and corruption, bribery and stuff like that. One of them is a fugitive from justice wanted by Interpol in the United States government, Gal Luft, who is a former IDF officer who is believed to be living in Israel as a fugitive. Which
I don't doubt
Israelis will not
that.
help
Has
us,
nothing to do
locate.
with far violation.
And the other one is
Robert.
Alexander Smirnov, who is a known Israeli intelligence agent. Those are the two people who was in a prison in the United States, so serving 6 years, and they can't find him. Your prison can't find him in his prison, in the prison. He is on furlough, but no one knows where he's been furloughed to. The only
He
passport
got
he has is an
eye
Israeli
surgery
passport.
because he was allowed to go blind when Joe was in power.
There are forces that I used to say, "Oh, this is bullshit." Have you ever read The Devil's Chessboard?
Yes. Alan Dulles, looking into the CIA, I read this book,
is
Chaos,
all
that then led me
first-
to the Devil's Chessboard. It's actually on our list for books to read for the book club.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'll knock you. Chaos, CIA, Manson
I read
stuff.
it,
That was the one that knocked me. And I was like,
Yeah.
what the heck
Pause
is our
real quick.
government?
Can
What
you
is...
read-
She's talking to somebody whose father was in the U.S. Senate for 5 decades. There is nobody more establishment than Joe Biden. You know, this guy is a total stooge of the worst forces in American life. His dad was in the Senate since 1972. So the idea that Hunter didn't believe this just goes to show how stupid he was, how naive he was for the majority of his dad's time in the Senate. His dad was a prostitute for the big banks. Delaware's nothing but a post office box for the credit card companies and formerly the Fortune 100. I mean, this is basic stuff. You know this. Most Most awake people know that you don't become a senator in Delaware without spreading your cheeks for the banks. His dad was a whore. He admitted that.
Going
devil's
on.
chessboard, and
Yeah.
you realize that anyway.
What the CIA is capable of, and you think it's all a conspiracy. And I think that's what they're fearful of, is that people will have awakened to that.
Yeah.
And so when they're kind of trying to throw red meat now, which you see them doing, the left, the right, it's just not landing the same anymore, because
No,
we just realized that there is a
By the way,
devil's chessboard.
that's why I've, in terms of the left, like, you think I'm going to defend the DC elite of the left? They crushed my dad. They when they saw their chance, they did everything in their power to push him out. He was never part of that club. He was never. He lived in Delaware. Everybody you can think whatever you want about my dad, is that literally my dad never bought a stock or a bond because he made a commitment in 1972 when he was 30 years old after Watergate, never to own a stock.
It was a different form of corruption. Why buy stocks and bonds, Robert, when you have a son doing unpaid or unofficial paid lobbying? Why the hell would he buy? Why would he open himself up to that type of transparency? If we didn't have his laptop, we wouldn't have known about the grift, because he's sharper.
And he did. My dad was the poorest person ever to enter the presidency, and the poorest person, not poorest. I mean, he had money. He'd written a book, and he'd done well, but he had the least amount of wealth entering the presidency in modern years since 1900 than anybody. And when he was in the United States Senate, he was not only the poorest man in the Senate, not poor again. He made over $170,000 in average over the course of 45 years, but not just the Senate, but 535 members of Congress. He was never a part of that club. And that's what I wish, like, you knew. That's what I wish they knew. And I am not here in any way to defend, the DC elites of my own party. I think that they're just as complicit in all this bullshit.
No, without question. Like the Nancy Pelosi's. What's your opinion on Kamala?
He won't say anything because Nancy helped
like her?
into the White House.
He didn't. Definitely.
No,
didn't.
you know what I did, and I don't want to say anything. I didn't know the vice president that well.
Okay.
I mean, and she was always nice to me personally. And so that was my,
That's my barometer.
But I didn't have
somebody's corrupt.
The other thing that people think that I was like living at the White House. I literally didn't leave
his own
my home because it was really hard to leave.
He was living there or just traveling there a lot?
He would go there for weekends at a time, but his daughter Naomi, while she was representing the government of Peru as an associate at Arnold and Porter, was living at the White House.
I stayed, in the hill that I lived on until the fires came. That's where I was. I was with Bo and Melissa, and trying to make it through, and not trying to make it through, thriving, making it through what would otherwise have seemed like a horrible, horrible life from any outsider's perspective. So I'm not dodging the question, but I don't want to shit on the vice president because I have no reason to necessarily.
No, she did nothing personal to you. She was nice to you.
Never did anything personal to me.
Yeah.
I think that she is, so
look how
kind of really machine stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't. In terms of all of that stuff, I think I'm tough enough to realize that that's part of, like, when you get to politics at that level, people kind of, I think, have this misperception of me is that for 50 years I was a crack addict and I was that picture. I went to Yale Law School. I went to Yale Law School. I served in the Clinton administration.
That's in our book. The reason why he went into Yale Law School is because Bill Clinton from the Oval Office called the dean, Guido Calabresi, and pled for him, for Hunter, to get into Yale Law School. He had crappy grades in his history degree in undergrad, so he went to Georgetown for a year, then transferred in. So Hunter had the benefit of the sitting U.S. president, Bill Clinton, calling the dean of Yale Law School to try to get him in. And guess what? Calabresi got a quid pro Joe later. After Hunter was admitted, after he transferred, Calabresi got an appellate court nomination, and guess who was the chairman of the Judiciary Committee? Joe freaking Biden.
Wow, that's a good one.
I was chairman of the board of the U.S. UN World Food Program, which is the largest humanitarian organization in the world. I served on 16 boards before I ever joined the board of Burisma or anything.
Because of his last name.
I taught at Georgetown I was taught at the master's program at the School of Foreign Service for 4 years.
I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, and
that was something that surprised me too. Not to be rude, but I thought you were dumb
Yeah.
Because I don't know, maybe because Meghan McCain was on The View for too long or something, and I was like, here we go, just like rich political kids. Like, I mean, she's just so dumb, and yet she's just always here. Like they're just giving her stuff, and so I think there's also that perception
exactly
where it's
what the board
rich kids don't work, aren't smart,
Yeah.
and so I was kind of expecting you to be sort of a Meghan McCain, and then when I watched it, I was like, oh wait, he actually has brain cells, which is by the way remarkable that you didn't kill them all off when you were on crack.
I told you before.
I
think they got pickled all the vodka
or something like that. So I was like, this is interesting. He's not a total idiot. So there are the stereotypes of rich kids who just keep getting handed all of these awards in life.
I say to everybody is that if there's anybody in the history of America that benefits from low expectations, it's me. Is it? People are like, oh my God, like you're
not
a
dumb.
complete moron. You haven't pulled out your crack pipe yet, which is really crazy. But that gives you an idea, by the way, of the level to which I was muted because they didn't want.
Hey, keep it going. You stop. Keep it going. I have to get more coffee. Keep it going.
Right.
Don't stop.
You have to subvert yourself to a machine to a certain degree. And like, it wasn't up to me if I wanted to go out and like rail at the machine or rail at, go on and argue with Jake Tapper, or,
because it would harm your dad.
Yeah. Because then I become even more of the story, but you give up your voice in that way. And it's incredibly emasculating. And particularly when the portrait that is being painted of you as a ne'er-do-well that never did anything in their life. Like, you want to talk about experience? Go look at my goddamn resume. I have 10 times more experience in 10 times more things. And I know I am 10 times more well-read than either one of the Trump boys, regardless of what you think about them. Now, you know what I can't do? Is that I'm not a great shot. And I don't know anything about real estate.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know anything about making money. And that's why I'm about, a few $1 million in debt. And I don't. I need to change that one around in some way at the age of 56. But
maybe that is
the portrait that was painted on me has given me this incredible gift. So I can walk into your house, into your studio, and I guarantee that people afterwards are going to go, I still think he's but my God, he's not, you know what? Like, can you believe it? He didn't go do lines in the bathroom.
No, that was my reaction when I watched Andrew Callahan. I was like, wow, he's actually thought through his addiction. He's talking about the ritual. Like, this guy's not an idiot. And you're right. I guess you do benefit from having exceedingly low expectations.
Exactly.
But it was sort of like you said the first time you spoke. And of course, you did sort of have to be quiet because otherwise you would have definitely hurt your father. And there's a machine that's kind of bigger than you that you have to submit yourself to.
The rage was there. You could tell that I even went back. My dad just said, honey, that was really beautiful parts of it. Do you have to use the F word that much? I was like, coming from you. Yeah. Which the thing about my dad though is he at least from the different generation, he never talked to us that way ever. Like even around my mom, or But anyway, so I'm trying to curb the F word for my mom and dad.
All right, you guys, summertime.
Great. So all right, so he's watching on the potty mouth.
In the car accident?
Just about 3. I was a month away from 3. But
and now it's about the car accident and Hunter's memory of his mother. This is just a whole personal puff piece. And then she apologizes to him at the end of this thing. Oh my gosh.
I was a month away from 4. My sister, Caspi, was about 18 months. And who my oldest daughter's named after, Naomi. And yeah.
Do you have any memory of her?
Yeah, it's a. I don't know for certain whether the things that I have, which I believe are memories, are memory, because it would be very rare at that age. I have distinct memories of my mom carrying us around in picnic baskets, and
Oprah moment.
And I even have a distinct memory of the car, not the accident, but of the car. But I don't know if it's because I've been, so steeped in stories. The beautiful part, like everything, have you ever read any of the Gnostic Gospels?
No.
You really should, because I know you're.
He thought God was a figment of the imagination.
I've listened to you talk about your Catholicism and your faith. And
I'm like a toddler in the faith, and there's so much. It's like so rich.
So it's really cool. There's one of the things that I've always been a student of. Because when I first went to Georgetown, the 2 closest people after I got to Georgetown were 2 Jesuit priests. One was named Ted Desiak, and another one was Bill Watson. And both Father Watson and Father Desiak led me into this idea of service. I started a thing called the Jesuit International Volunteers with Father Watson. Father Desiak, and then I went to the JBC because of Father Watson, which is like Domestic Peace Corps, and I did that for a year. And then when I opened up my own law firm, all my clients were Jesuit universities because I was friends with presidents of universities that were just like 5 or 6 years older than me. You know,
talking about the
Uniparty,
Robert. I know every president of every Jesuit university.
And not all St. Joe's and Granton and Loyola and all these Jesuit universities, Detroit Mercy. And
he didn't represent
but anyway, the Gnostic Gospels. The Gnostic Gospels
I went to a Midwestern in St. Louis.
They were found in Naj Hammadi, and they were written in the period between Christ's death and the first 2 centuries. And there's the Gospel of Thomas.
How does they not know this in their Catholic?
And Constantine.
I'm Lutheran and I know this.
No, it's boring the hell.
No, I'm very interested
Constantine,
in this.
Emperor Constantine converted to Christianity.
Yep, the end.
But what he did, and really what it was about, was not a true transformation of faith. It was a way to consolidate power. So he made the Christian.
Pause. I can't. He's getting so far off the reservation about what his usual lies are. This is so disputed, man. Like, I know he has a history degree, but this is so. Constantine is who Walt Whitman was really thinking about with regard to containing multitudes. Okay, there's a multiplicity of this is very complex. Whether or not Constantine's conversion was, we can't see in anybody's heart, so we don't know exactly all of the motives. But he's saying he does know the motives of Constantine because Hunter Biden got a degree in history in Georgetown. He's going to bring up the Dan Brown hogwash. Have you ever seen the Da Vinci Code?
Yeah.
He's going to bring up he's going to talk about, and this is literal blasphemy, by the way. He's going to talk about the relationship between Jesus Christ and Mary Magdalene here.
Bishops who were, 200 years into the very, very early church. He made the Christian bishops his lieutenants and enforcers as it related to the religion, so that he can control the more radical elements of it. And so that is when they came to an adoption of just 4 gospels. Mm. And because there's all of these other writings that became that you could get excommunicated for promoting. That is really beautiful portraits of, like, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene and Jesus's relationship with Mary Magdalene. But anyway, it's not a gospel, but it is one of the texts. I think it's called the Acts of John. There is a thing that Christ says, and he says, I'm paraphrasing, you must learn to suffer as I did.
You are paraphrasing, Hunter.
In order to be able not to suffer. And that is the greatest lesson.
He thinks Jesus is a figment of the
imagination. Not having gratitude for all the good things in my life, for having immense gratitude for all of my life. Like, I wouldn't be here. We can have this honest conversation. I couldn't get to know you as a human being if every single thing didn't occur behind it. Yeah, I would not feel this gift of being alive on a daily basis the way that I do if I hadn't overcome
Robert, that's not insightful.
Dozens of times.
Even Nietzsche,
in motel rooms,
who wasn't Christian,
in places that I could never afford to be found dead.
That the true Nietzsche, like, what I'm trying to say is this relates to Christianity in very few ways. Nietzsche, who thought that Christianity was the worst thing to ever happen to Europe, believed that the true measure of a life is whether you'd want to live it exactly the same way over and over again. So, sorry, go ahead. I just have to correct that. It's ridiculous.
And it's that piece of life that, like, the only way I got it is when they just tore off all my clothes.
You tore your clothes off yourself
and put me in the center of town and said, "Look at him." And I survived. When you survive that, you kind of go, "What am I going to do with my life?" Well, the number one thing I want to do with my life is, number one, take care of me.
Yeah,
take care of me.
Take care of me.
I feel like I have to say
that's the number one thing to him.
Right.
This is what our book proved, or at least we believe we marshaled enough evidence for it to prove, that Joe Biden's belief is in Joe Biden, meaning he's changed positions on China, on abortion, on busing. The only constant is his belief in himself. Same thing with Hunter.
Like, I'm really sorry that I contributed to that. Like, I just feel really shitty. Like, I feel guilty because, like, hearing you talk about, basically having the worst moments of your life. Like, I always speak about on my show how a lot of these kids growing up aren't going to even know what it was like before social media, where you could just make a mistake and, like, have that be over, and you got to grow up, and now it's like they're digging and they're finding people's tweets from when they're 17. They're an idiot. They wrote the N-word once, and they, like, want to hang them when they're 40. And I just saw you as a caricature, and it was definitely, like I said, like, feeling
real quick. There's a hilarious account on Twitter called Candace Owens Attempts to Read, and it's all the times she mispronounces basic and semi-basic words. And in caricature is one of them. She can't say it. She doesn't know how to say it.
She's not digging into somebody, or didn't, who was an innocent high school kid or a college kid who had no nexus to power and had no involvement in their own corruption and their own misdeeds.
He's going to talk about his debts to his sugar brother, his best friend, and how he's trying to reinvent himself at 56. Hunter's 56. 56 years old.
This whole segment is my apology to Hunter Biden. She labeled the chapters under the YouTube channel.
Which pissant producer got that task?
I don't know, but
hilarious shit.
This whole section here is my apology to Hunter for
that
what?
That is the
Gaslit
most pathetic portion.
By the political machine, convinced that it was just the left that partook in this political machine. And I just like really want to say, like, genuinely, like, I'm so sorry that I just didn't even consider he's a crackhead. And like,
you know what the breakdown of partisanship of the people who wrote that letter? It was 28 to 23 Republican. We put that in our book. So she has no clue what she's talking about. Here's another one. Here's the Oprah moment. Sorry, go ahead.
The handshake.
Go ahead. Look.
You know, like, that's actually a very relatable thing, and he shouldn't be, you know, like, to have that is just unbelievable to consider every worst thing you've ever done.
I am, like I told you before we started, I cry very easily.
But I do. I just feel like it's not who I want to be, and I think I've come a long way from that in general. And
Dude.
but I did partake in just the inhumanity of just look at this guy at the worst moment of his life, like with prostitutes. He's on crack, he's on drugs, and we should make fun of him because it makes us feel good. Or it makes us feel like we're somehow beating the machine. And that it was, I think, a really warped viewpoint. And hearing you speak about it today, I'm just like, wow, it's so gross that I partook.
You have so much, and I mean this in a good way, so much power. Because I think that your audience absolutely trusts you. And the reason that they trust you is because you've shown an enormous amount of courage of speaking your mind, particularly as it related to someone that you love like a brother, and everything that has transpired since then, which is a immediate rejection of power and an immediate rejection of, and knowing that you were just going to get the shit beat out of you. And for you to say that to me, I truly mean it. Just from a purely selfish point of view, it means the world.
Wild.
And no one
and that, it was, I truly didn't come here for that. I came here because you know what? I ask forgiveness every day, without any expectation that I will be forgiven. But I know the people that I hurt, and you know, and I still do, and I'm not even remotely perfect, and I still screw up, and you know, and
crazy.
But God,
dude, it's pathetic.
If we could have this conversation and genuinely, authentically believe that, like, I think just opens the door for and a few other people, without being, you know, with all humility, like maybe, you know, maybe a few other people.
And there is a freedom in it too. Like, there's a freedom that your worst moments of just like, there's nothing else.
What are you gonna say?
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like,
you got me butt naked up with the crack pipe. So I mean, I survived it, and so you have it, and it allows you to kind of return to who you are, because it's you know, addiction is. I wouldn't wish it. I always say, like, you know, people growing up and seeing what it's done to families, and seeing a lot of stuff when I was younger, like, really made me like, again, I'm like, wow, I can't even imagine.
Imagine if you could talk about it. Imagine if you could have openly talked about it, and the person that you were confronting or doing it is like, were able to say, like this is, you know, like, we got to do something about this. Come on, everybody, let's do something about it. I want to start an aftercare program for people for free, because the biggest thing that happens is people go to detox.
Can I have some more money, man?
Or rehab, and they get out after 30 days, and they got nowhere to go. And so one of the things that I'm trying to do is start a free aftercare program. And there's a couple. There's one in Kentucky that is a really beautiful model. But if I could do that, you know, I work with an organization called Boston Universal. I'm the development director there, and they do tenants' rights and homeless prevention. Like, I know what we all can agree on. We can all agree on that, you know, that people can't afford to pay the rent, and they need to be able to figure out a way to stay in their houses before it becomes a mother with 3 kids that are homeless. We know where that leads. But these kinds of things is what I want to use, what I'm doing. I want to do that. I also want to make a living. I also want to be able to pay my debt. I also want to be able to do the things that I have, I also still want to make art, I started, finally, like, you know what? I'm going to put all my art on my website, and people can come look at it. If they want to buy it, they can buy it. And like, because I don't really believe art becomes art until you share it with somebody. I mean, like, until there's an observer of it. So I can, you know, I can sit in my
Profound. Wow.
studio, which is my garage. But I want to do all of those things, and I want to be able to do it, and I want to be able to talk to you. You know what I mean? I want to be able to talk to the people. I want to talk to, like, that family, the necessary conversation, and say to the mom, like, the stories your daughter tells you about the way that you adopted animals, it really moves me. The fact that you think I'm the spawn of the devil.
Adopting
maybe have a
animals
discussion about
is
it.
hilarious.
You know?
Yeah, it's a caricature.
Yeah.
And I have a caricature of me that's been built up for years, so I
mispronounced
should have been more
caricature.
empathetic to it, honestly. But it's when you're in it, you kind of don't really know that you're in it, I think.
Well, not only in it, is that you're in it to win it.
Yeah.
And when everything is put in a political lens and life or death, and, you know, if we lose this election, you know, this is over. And these, you know, now
His dad said
I'll
that
tell you
many
this, is
times.
that we've never had somebody that is, you know, opposed staying longer than they're supposed to. But regardless, is that I think that we all have a tendency to look at the time that we live in and say that it's worse than ever, absolutely worse. And the fact of the matter
The
is,
ninth-
like you
Ninth
know your
truth he
history,
said in 2
is
hours.
that, like, this is a cycle. There will always be really bad people. We will always be disappointed in the end with leadership. We will
Of course, 'cause
always
that's
have
about
corruption.
living as
It
a
doesn't mean that we need to
Christian,
accept it. It doesn't mean that we don't need to fight against it. It doesn't mean that sometimes really good people make the wrong choice. But what it does mean is that I have absolute hope. I really, truly still believe in America, even with all of the
He's running, dude.
Yeah, I think so.
all of
Yeah.
its
Dude, can you
Rehab work.
imagine how
I mean,
many books we're going to
even
sell
after
if he
reading
runs?
The Devil's
I don't
Chessboard.
want him to for the good of the country.
like, you know, you read that and you go, like,
what is
and that's
this?
not about Democrats, and that's
No.
not about Republicans. And if you go back and you go back to
Free
Reconstruction,
online.
you go back to Andrew Johnson, and you go back to, like, the you know, the fact that the United States of America has not been truly the United States of America until, you know, 1964 at best.
Pause.
And
Do you realize how blasphemous that is? It wasn't truly the United States of America until 1964. Are you effing kidding me? She just lets him say that. I mean, I just, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, so he's referencing the Civil Rights Act, I'm
Of
guessing.
course he is. Oh, I know it. It's, but it's, I don't buy any of that shit. I mean, it's just, you can make an argument that blacks have been worse off ever since LBJ, man. I mean, their families have been.
Yeah, this has been a wild experience.
Yeah.
this whole thing, but I still really believe in the illusion. And the thing that makes
I
me so
believe in the
mad is
illusion.
they have completely torn away that illusion, and people feel hopeless. They feel like there's no chance of changing it. Okay, they gave this guy the reins to do it, and he was the one who's going to blow everything up and make it better for everybody. And they're kind of like, wait a second, what happened to Charlie? Wait a second, why are we
He
at war
doesn't give
again?
a shit about Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
You know,
I think this is
Charlie
actually the most
Kirk-
important question, and I will make this my
Pause
final
real
question I want to
quick.
ask you.
I
But
responded-
really
To Candace's post on X from the Marco Polo account with a picture of Charlie Kirk holding up our book. Charlie Kirk loathed Hunter Biden, dude. Loathed. I mean, it's an absolute disgrace.
interested about your faith life. You're Catholic. You're raised Catholic. You
I'm-
went to Catholic
I am-
school, and
yeah.
like, you're talking to me about the Gnostic
okay,
Gospels.
let's you and I go see the Pope together.
I would love to do that.
Seriously,
I think he's a little mad at America right now.
no, but you and I can go
he's
see him.
been. I was tweeted the same
Yeah.
day as the Pope, by the way, by Trump when he said bad things about me.
For
so
real. Let's go to the Vatican.
I would love to. I would
This
love
is the
to.
coolest place in the world. I love.
I just
the
got
Pope.
back from Italy.
Yeah.
I was there 2
were
weeks
you?
ago. Yeah, I
Okay.
did my confirmation.
Well,
Does
Oh, you
Oprah
did?
did.
I did. It was just the most beautiful,
oh, that's so cool.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
It was literally the same day that Trump posted the Time most vile person of the year. So
Yeah.
I felt like there was, even in that, there was something divine, because it was like looking at fake power and then the real power of like having, a cardinal getting confirmed, being in Italy, the deep history, like what outlasts that. Like there was something
It's
so
not
fickle
in
about
Italy.
it, like posting this
If they
photo
were
of me when I was
Catholics,
sick.
they know
Okay,
that it's
great.
the Vatican.
Hold on.
Talk about humiliating people for sport.
Somebody literally sent this to me right before I came into you. They knew that I was going to talk to you. And I promise you I did not plan to do this.
No, you're so fine.
It was a prayer. If you are wise and understand God's ways, prove it by living an honorable life. Do good works with the humility that comes from wisdom. But if you are bitterly jealous and there is selfish ambition in your heart, don't cover up
That's
the
one
truth
of the
by boasting in
funniest ones.
lying.
Hunter Biden is why I
For
don't
jealousy
stand
and
with
selfishness
Republicans.
are not God's kind of wisdom. Such things are earthly, unspiritual, and demonic. For wherever there is jealousy and selfish ambition, there you will find disorder, and evil of every kind. The whole first piece of that, when you were just talking, is what's my faith? If you are wise and understand God's ways, prove it by living an honorable life.
That's not
And the thing that
Christianity.
I recognized
He's
is
going to
that
talk about the one
quote
world
from
religion.
Mother
now.
Teresa. I don't go to mass as much as I used to. Grew up going to mass every Sunday. I never would miss a mass. You know, I went to Georgetown. I was Catholic. But what I realized is that my real faith is in that belief, is that just do the next right thing.
That's not Christianity.
Whether it's the golden rule. And that doesn't mean you have to be weak in your empathy, but always be compassionate. I believe in the perennial philosophy.
Christianity's not the
I
golden
believe
rule.
that same exact message from the Upanishads to the Gospels of Jesus Christ are all at base in terms of the red letter words of each of them are saying the same thing.
No,
Love your
they're
neighbor
not.
like
Can I pause
you
real quick?
would want to be loved.
In case nobody has heard the gospel before, in the actual message of Christianity, I'll try to do it in 20 seconds. Every religion in the world, beyond Christianity, says it's on you to fix you. Hinduism says that, Buddhism, the Japanese. The central truth and claim of Christianity is it's not on you to fix you. That somebody has taken your place and somebody has made atonement for all the failures that you inevitably will accumulate in your life. This guy is not recounting Christianity. Sorry, go ahead.
And it's the hardest thing in the world to do. It's so hard. But that's my faith. And I think that
so
there
you're
are
not a
certain
Christian.
people
That's fine, but
that
just don't
arrive
call
at
it
certain
Christianity,
times
Hunter.
that are messengers of that. And like for instance, I certainly don't agree with the Catholic Church on a lot of stuff. I certainly have a, but I tell you what, I really am so proud of Pope Francis and now Pope Leo in terms of just the notion of social justice.
Social justice is a scam.
I think that there
Anytime
can be
you
a
put a
practical
modifier in front of
application of
justice, it's
that
not justice.
in terms of our leadership. I really do. I think that faith that is used as a cudgel is really, really dangerous. I think that I know a lot of people that I personally love and very close to that are part of an evangelical church, particularly in the African American community, but that are horrified by the complicity of a certain section of the evangelical church and what's happening in the world today.
Mm.
So to me, my faith is very personal, rooted in it's rooted in Catholicism, and it's rooted in the Society of Jesus, the Jesuit Church in particular, which they used to always call the Black Pope until we finally got a Jesuit Pope. But and with eyes wide open too, that the church is as an institution is incredibly flawed and had been, but it's given me an enormous sense of community and belonging, just from a cultural perspective.
Well, what I'm going to say is I really think you should go to confession.
Yeah.
You should do that.
Oh, I don't worry. I've been to confession.
Yeah, you should go to confession and get,
just 100%. Yeah, don't worry.
Go back to the roots.
Hunter's
Go back to the
so
roots,
lost. That's so true.
Here's the other
there's so
thing.
much there, and it's like you're not, you're just not enough. Your brain's not enough. I mean, hearing you describe that, I can do this. That there's just something about, for me, like the submission at just every mass, and just remembering, like,
the beautiful thing.
Yeah,
the beautiful thing is
the
this.
title of his book. How convenient, how coincidental, Robert. The title of my book. By the way, his book got shitty reviews. We sold so many more copies without the New York Times scam list. Dude, his book is nothing compared to ours. His book, by the way, Hunter had a ghostwriter for his own memoir named Drew Jubera. We talked about it. We wrote about Hunter without any assistance. Hunter couldn't even write about himself without assistance.
Is that I have been going to confession for 6 years.
Wow.
Name the priest.
Ask me. I like that freedom. What you feel like the only person that you could say this to.
A work on
and I'm not saying that there is not like my impure thoughts that I'm, that's between me and God. But I am saying
he thinks God is a figment of the imagination.
Feeling of release that the confessional is
Christianity
there
is not a feeling.
Is the feeling that when I was finally able to see beyond all of the noise that I received by just existing, and getting up every day and looking, turning over and seeing that my wife who saved me and Bowie
People don't save
and
one another.
my dad
Right.
as a dad, not as president, but just as a dad. And my mom and my sister and my aunts and uncles and everybody else. And then the wider
He called his
circle,
mom a stupid
my friend George, my friend Franny, my friend Bobby. I like people that came into my life and never left. And despite it all, and there was nothing in it for them, but just grief and ridicule. Pretty cool.
It's everything.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, Hunter Biden. Never thought this conversation
Oprah.
would happen, and it just stranger things have happened. And this has truly been one of the most powerful discussions that we've ever had.
How
Wow.
rough
And I
was
think
that,
it's because of your
Robert?
journey. You've lived through a lot. You
That's
lost
pretty
your
rough.
mother, your sister in a tragic accident. You lost your brother to cancer. Maybe for a while lost your dad to politics, the political
Has nothing to
machine.
do with this
Lost
corruption.
yourself to crack
Nobody
cocaine.
wanted his brother to die of
And
cancer.
somehow,
I gained
Oh.
everything.
yeah, gained it all back.
I really did. I can't tell you how much it means to me that that you would invite me here into your home to be able to have this discussion. And
Her kids live
I
there.
really mean
man.
it. I'm really, really honored.
And I'm
Hunter's
grateful that you took
never
it and that
been
you've
into my living room.
accepted my apology, because
Ever.
I just feel really shitty about it. But
Thanks.
Another
guilt is good, like we said earlier. Thank you so much for joining us. Amazing.
Wow.
Thanks
All right.
to your audience for sticking through that. I know that's rough for me.
That was
but
rough.
this
That was
is-
horrible.
This is my beat, man. This is one of my beats. I have to correct everything he says because he won't stop. Somebody who's rational goes and buys a cabin in Montana and does his doodles. He won't stop lying. So I have to keep doing this. I appreciate you doing this. People have been on the live chat talking. It's been great. We've been on here now for a couple of hours, and I need to eat. I don't know if you heard my stomach rumbling, but
No, can you take a couple quick questions in super chat?
oh, I'd love to. But the thing is that we counted 9 times Hunter told the truth in 2 hours. Everything else was a distortion or a lie. I counted 9 times he told the truth.
Yeah, that was just a giant slobber fest, and she was glazing him the whole time, and they were, I think, commiserating about Trump, but any of the policy concerns or issues that they have with the Trump administration, she could have asked him about his role in those same issues and didn't, just kind of jumped right over that. That was a wild experience. So
Yeah, it was, again, entertainment, shitty entertainment, if I can be so bold. Again, I would say exactly what I'm saying to you if she had me on her program. What I found is that Sean Ryan and Candace they don't have courage. So when they get him in person, they just shut their brain off. It's like they can't look at somebody in the eye and ask him a tough question. That means they're not fully human.
yeah, that was weird. Very strange. And then an apology to him for kind of doing her job, which is to identify, trends and patterns and facts and
Yes,
call out
yes.
the corrupt and then say, I'm sorry for doing all of that. Like, what was that?
If Hunter wasn't in business, dude, and didn't conduct all these foreign deals, nobody would care about him. They keep using the sophistry of they're just making fun that I'm an addict. That's not what it's about. It's about his foreign business dealings.
All right, couple chats, Garrett, and thank you for making sure that we can anchor this in, ensconce this in the digital record. So
Oh, I love it.
everybody
I'm
can know.
downloading it. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, no, it's our pleasure. Thank you for being here. Okay, couple questions. So first of all, Stephen Cooper just says, hey, just saying thank you from New Hampshire, from Stephen Cooper. Thank you, Stephen. We had this one from Dolly Taz. Makes me sick. Was an addict too, but no rehab. Did it alone. Amazing, Dolly. No, I couldn't help it. I was an addict. Excuses. Yeah, I still lost everything. Had to start over with other people's perception of me. No excuses. Now clean since 2007.
That's what makes you cry, man. And her daddy
Right.
wasn't the president.
Right. Enabling it. And then you, once you're, so-called through it, then you come back and you use it to justify or to excuse or immunize yourself from any criticism for your bad acts. It's part of the program. You have to make amends. You own it. When you go make your amends, you don't say, hi, I did this harmful thing to you, but I'm not responsible for it because I'm an addict. And you should still forgive me anyways, though, because excuse. It's I was wrong. Leave all of the addiction stuff out. You just say, I was wrong. This is the harm that I caused you. How can I make that up to you and move on? Because it's part of your experience. It's part of who you were. It's not a justification for what you did.
Perfectly said. And it's this making predilection, a genetic disposition for addiction into a disease. It's not a disease. I'm not saying that Hunter, well, Joe told Hunter this over text. He said, "You got the disease from mommy and me." So I don't think it's a disease, but nevertheless, Joe admitted apparently to Hunter in text messages that Nelia, the mother that tragically died in the wreck, she apparently had addiction issues. That was also in our book. We're the only people to talk about that in the Western world, if anybody would read the book. And so that means that Hunter was predisposed to it, but that doesn't mean that Hunter is absolved from all responsibility. You know, it's ultimately a thing of willpower. And Hunter doesn't want to address that. He can't say he had poor willpower. He talked about being a coward one time. That's it.
Well, and it's about your higher power. It's about relying on that to help you through it. You can't do it yourself. It's step
Precisely.
2 right here. It's step 2. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Step 3, made a decision to turn our care and our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. Made your inventory, admitted to God the defects of character, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings, made a list of all persons, then made amends to them. And then in 11, conscious contact with God and all these things. And it's like, we didn't really hear about that. We heard about how his wife saved him and how, you know, he's kind of saved himself. And I don't know.
So what you're saying is, according to the Oprah format, it was wanting. Like, even if we stipulate that it was just Oprah on the right, sort of, it wasn't even that cathartic. Like, it sucked in the Oprah genre.
Yes, it did. It did.
I can't get over it. Everybody's got to look up Michael Scott. Where's my Oprah moment? Because I'm a huge Office fan. I know the entire script, all 7 seasons. I've memorized it. And
it's a great show. I'm a big fan too. That's funny. You like it.
If you want to look it up, are you going to pull it up? Where's my Oprah moment for Michael Scott? The Office.
Let me see if I can grab it real quick. But here's another comment.
Yes.
While we're here, from Kathy. I like this type of conversation. Sometimes I just want people to talk, so much more can come out without confrontation. Candace Owens' body language shows she did not look comfortable in Hunter's presence.
Yes, and I think that goes back to the courage thing. She was constantly guarded with Hunter, and I don't know why she agreed to do this at her studio. If she wants to see him in person, do it in a neutral location. I don't. She can, unlike me, I have my home office here in my house, but she could afford to have a studio away from her home. I would, if I were the Trumps, I'd have that place fumigated, dude. I'm telling you, look at the pictures on his laptop. The stuff that's underneath that guy's fingernails can grow into mold. If you water it, it'll grow plants.
Yeah, that's not good. Here's another one from Derek Brown. What's up, Derek? Double protection, 42 CFR Part 2, substance use disorder, SUD treatment records are granted even higher confidentiality protections under federal law.
Yes, he's wrong. But that's not surprising. Remember, Hunter is an attorney, but unlike you, Robert, he's never entered an appearance on behalf of somebody. Come on.
Right.
He's never been an advocate in open court. And remember, Hunter is no longer and this is a little bit attributable to us, a little bit. I don't want to take too much credit for anything because I'm on the outside. But Hunter's no longer barred in D.C. and Connecticut. That guy's been, and that was the just result. Kevin Morris, his attorney, needs to be disbarred too.
We've got some real compliments. God bless you for what you do, Garrett and Rob from Goose Toots. We have
Thanks for having me on.
Scraps. Thank you, Rob, for showing this. Although no other comment, but probably rough. We had Kat, we all just get along, said Biden fatigue is real. Elk Plow with 2 comments says, riddle me this. If he only made $570,000 while in office, where did the $2 million cash come from for his Delaware mansion?
So this is a bit of a controversy. There's a writer for the Federalist who's still doing the math on this. I think what it comes down to is a huge book advance for Promise Me Dad, one of the scam books that's getting in Zwanitzer in hot water. Because Hunter and Joe don't write their own books. They get piss ants for that. And one of them is named Mark Zwanitzer. And so Zwanitzer deleted the recordings, and the FBI was able to recover them. But that goes back to Promise Me Dad. He got a huge advance for that book. And it's legal money laundering.
Elk Plow says, I've been following Marco Polo for a long time. I'm glad it's finally coming into the light. Bots on X try to burn him every post.
Hey, this is part of it. Unlike Candace and Hunter, I'm not gonna bitch that people are mad at me or that you gotta understand the, anytime you have a modicum of freedom, and we have that in the United States. I would argue Europe has basically no freedom. Any time that you can speak your mind, dumb people are gonna speak their mind back. That's good. Because a
And
minority percentage of them will listen to reason.
we had Mrs. T. Rush say he's a deplorable human, but he came by it honestly. The abuse his dad put him through would destroy anyone. I don't excuse it, but I get it.
That's a sophisticated take. And remember having Jill as a stepmom. Can you imagine?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, there's the stories about his sister in the shower with Biden dad.
Her own words. We're not taking anything out of context. She said showers with my dad, quote, probably not appropriate. You can go to Marco Polo USA and read the diary transcribed because she had chicken scratch physician-like handwriting. Just go read her diary.
Yeah. And we had Voice of the People said, see what I was saying about this interview? Yeah, it was rough.
It was rough, and I appreciate everybody sticking with us. But we have to, and I only jumped in. Hopefully my mom won't be so mad. Hopefully I didn't talk over you. I only jumped in when there were verifiable lies. Some of the lies aren't verifiably. So I only tried to jump in when I have documented evidence that what he's saying is hogwash.
Here's one that one of our meme smith extraordinaires, Geegum Geegum, put together right here of you. Something for Garrett Ziegler, show opener from a big Watching the Watchers fans that appreciate your hard work on the quest for truth and accountability. Yeah, you look good, man.
It's a rough picture. That's 30 pounds ago. That picture came
no, it's muscle. You look good. You're CNN, you're swole,
Whenever I pled the fifth to the January 6th scam committee, this Zachary Cohen figure from CNN took a picture of me waiting outside, and that's that. But that was I gained and lost 30 pounds writing this book, and I'm so glad we printed physical copies, man. I got a buddy in Chicago whose family runs a 3-generation, I think it's been around since the 20s, this printing company, and they're getting them to us at cost, and it's just such a labor of love. And I'm going to send you the new version with him smoking the crack pipe on the cover, and you should take a look at the shininess of the paper. We got 70-pound weight. It's glorious. It triggers the hell out of them. Hunter hates me, and all I've done is tell the truth, dude. He can't even look at me. We're not unfair.
It's hilarious.
I didn't say Hunter had intercourse with Natalie. I did say her mother didn't want to be around him. I mean, how can he show his face in public? There's verifiable evidence that his sister-in-law, who he was banging, didn't want him around her daughter. How does he show his face in public?
Hilarious. Well, yeah, right now I think it's out of necessity. He's got to rehabilitate his image. It sounds to me like he wants to run for office, honestly. Like this whole thing is about
somebody asked me that yesterday. A dear friend asked me that yesterday, and guess what? California, certain pockets of it, I still think the state writ large is 55-45 Dem, like really close, especially the Inland Island and all that. But the district that elected Adam Schitt, they would elect Hunter. Those R35 areas in Burbank, they are gone. They're Europe. So I think the Democrat Party is so, in the Republican Party, you know me. I mean, it's just awful. 30% of Republicans are terrible. Hunter's party, and they've been Democrats for 60 years. Dude, they're nuts. They're nuts. These people hate the United States. So he's not a felon anymore. He was pardoned. DeFreak asked, guess what Candace didn't bring up in 2 hours of Hunter? His dad lying to the world for 6 months or more about his pardon. Why'd you get a 10-year pardon, Hunter?
Nothing.
Not a single question about it.
Nothing.
It's a joke. It's entertainment.
Yeah, a couple other comments. Baby Lewis, all I can say is OMG about them both. Thank you for the show. Sharpie guy says he's talking a million miles an hour and saying nothing, a waste of a good mind. He's ridiculous, and I can't buy into his BS. Herky jerky, a stuttering ick. Dan says, is there any difference between the new book versus the one that I have, which he owns, with only the words on the cover? So I've got OG version.
Very good question. 2 differences. The cover is different. The quality of paper is different. That's the first change. And then secondly, we added the criminal exhibits that were in Hunter's criminal trial in June of 2024. And what was one of those exhibits? Exhibit 38, I believe, was the Square invoicing system from John Paul McIsaac's shop to Hunter, because Hunter dropped off the laptop, so we didn't have that, right? Because the laptop stops in March of 2019. But the government subpoenaed Hunter's iCloud, so the government had that email that the shop owner sent to Hunter that said, "You owe us $85." And to this day, Hunter hasn't paid JPMI $85. He owes him $85 for the keyboard and the data recovery. So get to paying, Hunter. Hunter, this will drive him up a wall. Hunter, your debts not only include Winston and Strawn and Kevin Morris, they include John Paul McIsaac for $85. Get to paying, dude.
Rub some dirt on it. Says, hey, I downloaded Garrett's work when he first published it. Please thank Garrett for his exceptional dedication to all of this.
Thank you. And if you have any material corrections, remember, I'm one of the gifts I have. I have many flaws. Ask my wife. One of the gifts I have is if you criticize me personally, maybe I'm not handsome enough or anything, all that stuff is water off a duck's back to me. I have a weird, tough, alligator-like skin. But what I'm interested in is any hater providing material corrections. If you send me a note and said, you know what, Garrett, the criminal violation that you're talking about on page 266, I just don't see it. The clear and convincing evidence standard that you articulated at the beginning of the discussion, I don't think it rises to that level. I adore that type of criticism. And I welcome all legitimate haters and just critics to engage with the material. That's what Hunter won't do. They talk about Steve Bannon and Miles Guo. We criticized Miles Guo in our book. That's how unsophisticated my haters are, dude. Miles Guo's a nutcase, okay? So I have nothing to do with Miles Guo. I wish Miles Guo never got the material. And that's how stupid, and you know that Hunter hasn't read the book, right? That he has other people for that. Hunter's above that. Morris, on the other hand, has read every word. And because those are his fixers. Hunter doesn't solve any of his own problems. He has fixers for that.
We had First Amendment said, great show, thanks. Spud says, if Hunter has no longer has any fear, he would be plugging Garrett's book instead of his own.
Hell will freeze over 3 times. Remember, I know more about his daughter than he does. I represented I was the expert witness for the mother of Hunter's child. It's sad as hell, man. And remember, these are the people who don't believe premarital sex is a sin. I think it is, but guess what? Let's say you don't believe it's a sin, like the Bidens do. According to their own morality, they're being cruel. So let's say that somebody in my family has a child out of wedlock. We say, this is how the Zieglers would respond. Yeah, that's not right, but it's not the kid's fault, and you're going to treat the kid just the same. Joe doesn't even do that. Joe doesn't acknowledge the child. Who cares if the child was born out of wedlock? It's a human being. So according to their own moral framework, they're not living authentically. Who cares if maybe... Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
You're good. GG Scrap says, depressing to know that some will believe his lies because Candace gave him airtime. Bidens are evil. Thanks for truths.
Thank you. And the commenter didn't say this, but one of the things that I don't like the word platforming, because Jesus platformed Pharisees and Sadducees and criminals of the day. There's no harm in talking to anyone. I'll go and talk to George Soros, Satan himself, right? There's no harm in talking to someone. I don't believe that platforming someone is this inherent sin. If Candace had him on and asked him tough questions, I'd be the first one to praise her for that. As would you, right?
Of course. Yeah,
People
of course. It'd be epic to do that, yeah.
Another. It's this joke of an Oprah moment that I can't stand.
Amazing.
That's a great
All right,
comment.
so
They said they're abortion supporters. Yeah, guess what? In the iPhone backup, Hunter was apparently mad at London Roberts, the mother of his child, for keeping the baby. She said, I know you don't support my decision. So Hunter apparently, according to the mother of the child, who's a pretty dang good first-person source on this, that he wanted her to get an abortion. Nuts.
That sounds right. He cares about himself, not about the consequences of his actions.
Yeah.
So, all right. So let's wrap it here, my friends. I want to welcome, we got Defective Potato, Howard, Julie Rose, Maddie Jack. Welcome new supporters. We got Bia joined up. We got Brenda Sue. Thank you for the dono coming in here to support the work. And of course, I want to plug Garrett's channels because he does interviews. He's all over the place talking about these issues and others. And so we linked the YouTube channel and the Rumble channel. So hopefully you're already following him on X, hopefully already on Telegram. But he does great interviews. And obviously, you know, this was a little bit different because we're going through 2 hours of gobbledygook.
Tough. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough to stay engaged because there's so much lies. And I so appreciate you mentioning this. It's the same username on all platforms. Marco Polo 501c3. Same on all platforms.
Amazing. All right. And friends, thank you for joining us. Little Saturday special. Garrett, if you want to hang for a sec, we'll close out and then we can say our goodbyes. But friends, thank you once again for joining us. We think that the truth is important, to not enable people to just come out and to just kind of run their mouths about, you know, platitudes and kind of paper over their past. The truth is still important and it still matters. And that's the report that you can find at bidenreport.com. Is that right?
Yes, sir. bidenreport.com for free. Download the PDF. And if you want to support the foundation, get a physical copy.
Amazing. Friends, thank you for joining us. Have yourselves a beautiful rest of your weekend. Thank you for sharing the show. Thank you for following Garrett on all of the platforms. And we will see you back here on the next one.